Tonight on the Black Channel, on this one of our revered, self-proclaimed holidays, we take a look back at the teaching of Malcolm X and we ask ourselves a question. What would he say today? The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting super fortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel. And I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college and university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program, we are doing as we always do here. We are taking an opportunity to review the life and legacy of the immortal El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, more popularly known as Malcolm X. And you already know his story. And if you don't, what have you been doing? But you already know his story. And this is an opportunity to review some things, because as a people, when these other people talk about their founding fathers, when they talk about their icons, it is of the utmost importance that we remember ours and who it is who got us where we are. They are crucial, critical, essential steps on the way, especially individuals who have been willing to give their lives, which is the ultimate sacrifice and is the ultimate sign of sincerity, is when you're willing to lay down your life for something. And that is why we take this as an opportunity to remember that. Today, on Malcolm X's birthday, we do not require a government. We do not require a president. We do not require an act of Congress. This is not something that is given to us. It is something that is taken by us. This belongs to us. It is not something that is given to us by any entity, any government, any person, any office, any nation. This is ours. Just like they have created theirs, we have created ours. And we define this. The reason that Malcolm X has always been a thorn in their sides is because immediately after the murder of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the dominant society immediately went to work seizing his image, sanitizing his words. As we pointed out all these decades later, they immediately went to work sanitizing his life, repackaging him, and omitting everything except "I have a dream," and telling you one line from it. They just distilled it all down to one line. They just used that out and tried it out as a useful bludgeon. Now, we should not judge people by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And that's been their excuse to say overlook white supremacy. And they have watched and witnessed as we, the children and the grandchildren, have put that to the side. Now they don't want to talk about Dr. King anymore either. Now, isn't that interesting? Most of us who are over the age of 40, we spend our entire lives with them bandying Dr. King about. And now, since we've been hard at work for the last 30 years, they don't want to mention Dr. King anymore either. Now, isn't that interesting? Dr. King has gone back to being considered a radical again. Now they don't want to mention him either. That was not something that was given to us. A bastardized, fabricated, propagandized image of Dr. King was given to us. We dug into the man, we did the research, and we have extracted the real thing. Now they don't want to mention him anymore either. Isn't that curious? They don't want to bring him up anymore now. In the case of Malcolm, they never wanted to bring him up. You see, you couldn't do enough sanitizing with Malcolm. That was the problem. You couldn't sanitize him enough. You couldn't eliminate enough with him. There was just entirely too much to sanitize and eliminate. You couldn't do it. He had said too much. He had been too prolific, and his brand was entirely too strong. They attempted to sanitize it through Alex Haley. At the end of Malcolm's life, they attempted to sanitize it then, but that train had left the station. Malcolm X, the hard image that the world knew him by, that was it. It was etched in stone. And he had not stepped away from it. So sanitizing him and propagandizing him and mutating him into something different, that was just a bridge too far. It was a stone too heavy. He had done too much, said too much. You couldn't clean that up. So what they did was attempt to use it as a weapon to split black folk. It was used to create animosity against the Nation of Islam. And then they just crossed their damn fingers and hoped for the best. And it was barely 2 decades later that there was a resurgence of Malcolm, not by the white media. The white supremacist media had nothing to do with it. We seized Malcolm, somebody that they hoped that we had forgotten. Many of us were in elementary school, middle school, high school, and they were asking, how the hell did you find him? Please remember, Spike Lee did not make the movie Malcolm X, and then we all found out about Malcolm. We all knew about Malcolm, and that was what created the interest in making Spike Lee's film, Malcolm X. Let's be very clear about that. You already had the X hats, the X t-shirts. You already had all of that going before that film was made. The interest was in him then. Why? Because he was speaking specifically to our needs and where we were. He was speaking specifically to that. Nobody else was doing that, and their bastardized version of Dr. King was not addressing that. We were looking for somebody who was going to speak to that. And he did. And he did. It was an outgrowth of the beating of Rodney King, police brutality. It was the outgrowth of all these things, and that here we come into the 90s and we're seeing the exact same thing all over again. We were looking for a voice that spoke to exactly what we were experiencing, and we weren't going to accept somebody giving a diluted, watered down version of it. We wanted somebody who was saying exactly what we were thinking. The people were taken to the streets, and I have a dream was not the slogan of the people taken to the streets by any means necessary. Was the sentiment of the people taken to the streets. At that point, the train had left the station and wasn't nothing you could do about it. And they understood it then. You lost an entire generation. When that occurred, that was a paradigm shift in American and Western culture. And at that minute, at that moment, you had lost an entire generation. And they have been dealing with the fallout of it ever since. And I submit to all of you that even though Malcolm X was a member of that baby boomer generation, he was the bellwether moment that separated us from the baby boomer generation. That generation did not glum to what he was saying, not nearly as much as the way we do. They did not appreciate the profits when they were given to them, not to the extent that we do. We are the ones who made the man an icon. We had to dig up the legend and make it an icon. His contemporaries did not do that. They did not do that. and he became our spokesperson. And as a result, we created our culture. We added to our mythos. We added to our icons. We once again enriched our own culture with the specific names, the specific people, the specific places that you can name. Not ones given to us by a white supremacist history book. We set about to make our own history book. We set about to make our own. And we succeeded. Some of you will have a defeatist mentality about these kind of things, but actually I believe that you are quite wrong. You see, we never make as much progress as we would like to have. But let's be very, very clear. By the time you get to the 1980s, you have a black society that is obsessed with sitcoms, tennis shoes, and other diversions. And the dominant society was telling itself, finally, we've got them completely distracted. We've got them completely dispersed. There's no revolutionary energy anywhere. We have nothing else to fear. They have been properly neutralized. Then the 90s came and everything spun on its ear. And all the assurances that they had or thought that they had safely gotten away with it and that the revolutionaries were safely buried, they had a brutal awakening of how erroneous that notion was. And it is from there that we went to work to dig up the others. It is from there that we went to work to go unearth H. Rap Brown. It was from there we went to work to unearth Stokely Carmichael. It was from there we went to work to unearth the Black Panthers in total. It was from there we went to work to find all of the revolutionaries. It was from there we went to work to look up Geronimo Pratt. It was from there that we went to work to understand what the real legacy of Muhammad Ali was, and it wasn't boxing. It was from there that we investigated these people. It was from there that you started having African American studies and Afro-American studies. It was from there that you had that. We can be here all day naming the names, Assata Shakur and all the rest. It was from there that we started digging into the rest of them. And that was what they were afraid of, is that if you unearth the first one, it will unearth all of them. They were terrified to death that that was what was going to occur, and that was exactly what happened. And then we kept going. Why? Before you had an internet, you had Dr. Joseph Ben Yakanan, you had Dr. John Henry Clark, you had Chancellor Williams, you had Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, and all of these scholars who were telling us, by the way, there's a lot deeper thing going on here. This doesn't just stop at the 1960s or the 1920s with Marcus Mosiah Garvey or the 1800s with Frederick Douglass and Denmark Vesey and Nat Turner. This goes back way before them. What we are up against is, in the words of Dr. John Henry Clark, a world war that's been going on for a millennia now to erase us from history. We are a people who our place, our real estate, our geography, our accomplishments have been co-opted by other people, and they have set about for the one goal and one goal only: to convince us that we are not relevant. Because if you are convinced of what you have already done, then you feel you have a birthright, especially if it's been stolen. So they have set about to convince us you never did anything. You don't have any reason to fight because you never did anything. If you never did anything, then we never took nothing from you. So what are you upset about? You have no reason to be upset because nothing was taken from you because you never did nothing. They have attempted to convince you that you have absolutely no legacy of any kind. You have no legacy outside the American continent, nor do you have a legacy inside of it. That you are a people who simply only came into existence when white people laid their hands on you. I've spent the better part of going on 2 decades now teaching you all about this. That, by the way, do you understand what the quintessential ingredient of the brainwashing of the plantations was? Everybody else is taught that they have a history and a legacy and icons except us. When we ask them, where do we come from? They tell you, you started right here. Well, no. I mean, where does our history start? Right here. Well, no. I mean, before we met you, you have no history before you met us. Your history begins with us. There is nothing before us. Your history begins right here with me, the white man standing in front of you. This is where your history starts. There is nothing else. And if you did hear some fallacious rumor that there was something before me, just understand it was terrible. It was awful. You all were sitting around eating bugs and everything. We found you crawling on all fours. Let me tell you, it was a bad situation. Bad situation. Nothing but a bunch of animals running around. That's what in the world was going on there. So, no. When we came along, we civilized you. And then, yes, indeed. Yes, we did. And when someone has that drilled into their psyches and drilled into their souls, you have to understand that that's a critical, crucial element of slavery. Why is that an essential element of slavery? People understand something. When you have slavery, of course, was meant to completely create the white system of capitalism. Slavery was the essential ingredient that made white capitalism possible. Without it, it would not exist. Period, point blank, in the discussion. Okay, but here's the problem. The problem is that it doesn't exist if you don't have an economic system that is viable until you optimize it. If your economic system is very inefficient, then its ability to prolong itself is going to be very much in question. So once you get to work, you have to start tweaking it. You have to make it more efficient. Ultimately, your goal is to optimize it, to get optimal efficiency out of it. Okay, folks, I went to the explanation to tell you there that the optimal efficiency of slavery is not shackles and chains. Shackles and chains are actually very inefficient. You must remove the shackles and chains, not because you're lazy, not because we're having an intellectual discussion, but because we run the numbers, we run the math. Shackling people and putting them in chains is very inefficient. Because the distance that you can be from your slaves is going to be dictated by how many chains and shackles you have. Folks, I'm not making an intellectual, psychological, academic argument. This is a mathematical discussion. For example, if you all have dogs, those of you who have dogs, those of you who have pets, the majority of you don't put your pets on a leash. Why not? Simple reason. It's very inefficient. You try to train your pets so that they don't need to be on a leash. Otherwise, you're going to have to, in order to keep them under control, you have to hold a physical leash. Well, yes, it limits how far they can go, but it also limits how far you can go. So instead of you being able to divert your energies and attention into another direction, you instead have to concentrate on this leash, on this shackle. People, this is not an academic exercise. This isn't gaslighting. I'm not saying this because, well, it sounds cute and Jason's trying to rewrite slavery to make it sound like, see, they had to take them off. No, I'm saying that this is the way it's always done. Whether you're talking about ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, China, Russia, Nazi Germany. Come on, folks. You go and take a look at that. Shackles are very rarely visible. Shackles are expensive, they're heavy, you have to keep renewing them if they break, but most of all, they limit mobility. You want to get these slaves to work with a minimal amount of oversight so that they're over there making you passive income so you can concentrate your focus and your energies in other directions. That is optimizing it. So now you have to call in the psychologists. You have to call in the psychologists and the mental people, and now you're going to have academia get involved, and now your centers of academic study. Now you're going to start coming into things like psychology and the psyche and the examination of man, and how do you get people to think these things and behave a certain way. You're going to put a lot of money into that because you need to figure out, by the way, how do I control them without these shackles? This is limiting my mobility. How do I get them to accept their servitude without incident? And that's when you start having your brain trusts go to work. That's when they start talking and they say, okay, we're going to sit down. Let's go ahead and examine this here. How do you make that happen? And don't you know, one of the major hallmarks of European society has been psychology. Where do you think they honed it? Where do you think they started looking into that? They started first examining that with, by the way, how do you keep these slaves from rising up against you? We have to take the shackles off, otherwise we have not optimized the workforce. But once you take the shackles off, of course, your first concern is what's to prevent them from busting me upside the head. For those of you who've seen my documentary film Race War, none less than Richard Spencer sat there and told you why they sit here and write their books and say, why, you know, when you examine the slave plantations of America, the slave owners were not all these brutal barbarians. Really? Why, no. As a matter of fact, the relationship they had with their slaves was not really master-slave. I mean, the relationship they had with their slaves was really paternal. So in other words, you're saying that the slaves saw the plantation owner as Big Daddy? Why, yes! So you see, this is why you today should not be angry about it, because your great-great-great-great-grandparents, well, he was really just like white Big Daddy, and you all need to be cool with that. But folks, brothers and sisters, that's not actually too far off the mark of their intent. None other than Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, a true psychologist, taught us this. Remember that she said the goal of white supremacy is to infantilize you. Every interaction they have with us, they attempt to frame it and engineer it as parent-child. The men are referred to as boys, no matter how old you are. The females are the girls and gals, no matter how old they are. The males, the people are expected to behave like eternal adolescents, no matter how old you are. When you talk to them, when it comes to running the society, they keep telling you that all the things that actually run the society, the monetary system, fractional reserve banking, economic strategy, derivatives, politics, economic policy, social policy, they keep telling you and me, oh, this would be too complicated for you. You need to let us run this. This would just be too hard for you. You just let us run this. Yeah, the Federal Reserve System and investment bank, this would just be too complicated for you. We'll take care of the really big stuff. You take care of entertaining our guests. And that is the way that it is for you today, right now, to this day. They tell you, we'll take care of the big stuff. And a lot of folks think, woo, that show is good. Let him take care of all that old big fancy stuff there and fighting with the IRS and fighting with all them numbers and things like that right there. Now, I don't want to get involved with all that there. Let me go ahead and take care of this part down here. It's just simple and easy. And just that quickly, you fallen into the trap. Just that quickly, you fell for the bait and you've fallen into the trap because you see those upper levels. That's where the power is. That is where control over all of you is. That's where it is. And everything they do is intended to intimidate you from aspiring or even investigating what they're doing up there. And yet what they're doing up there controls every facet of your life. Once again, 720 degrees of the analysis you'll receive absolutely nowhere else. Once again, your life is being controlled without shackles. Damn! They are able to physically control you without shackles. They are able to physically control your behavior, physically confine you, no shackle, no chain, no handcuff, no overseer in sight, and yet you are completely under control. Physically under control. What do you know? All this time later, there you are. Right back there again. When you've been telling yourself here that you're convinced, don't worry, they'll take care of the big stuff here and I'll be all right here. And next thing you know, you're controlled. And did you even realize it? Of course not. As a matter of fact, you think it was your idea. Why? You think that not struggling for something else was actually what you really wanted, not something you were maneuvered into or engineered into. Well, it was something you chose. And isn't that what they're going to tell you? Why didn't you choose this? When in reality, that's a lie. In reality, that's a lie, because how can I choose something when I've been given a menu of options that I didn't create? Which is the legacy of Malcolm X. The reason why we have a legacy of resistance is because these people try to tell us that we chose where we are today, and that is a lie. They handed you a menu, and they told you you can choose anything that's on this menu that we gave you, but you can't choose anything that's not on it. So they give you a menu of hamburgers. Well, here's hamburgers and fries. You're like, well, I want some seafood. Yeah, you can't choose that. How about some Italian? Can't choose that either. Chinese? Nope. Mexican? Nope. You can have all the burgers you want. You can have any type of burger you want. You can choose whatever's on this menu, but you can't choose anything that's not on it. So once again, they try to convince you that whatever's on the menu, that's the only thing that exists. And if you do figure out that there's more that in existence on the menu, they tell you can't have that one. And that's when the conversation turns hostile. Now that is where all of us are today. I assume most of you listening to me today, that's where you are. You are here today listening to this broadcast because you said, yeah, I want to choose the items on the menu myself. I don't want you bringing me another menu and telling me this is what I'm going to eat. I want to start writing in some things on this menu. Well, we're a hamburger restaurant. Well, you better call your supplier and tell him to get some calamari. Because from here on in, I'm choosing what's on my menu. You will no longer dictate to me what it is I get to have. I'll choose it just like you choose it, because I just couldn't help but notice you're handing me a menu for this hamburger shack, and then you're leaving out of here and going to the French restaurant down the street. Oh, you own that one too. Oh, that's the one you eat at. Well, I couldn't help but notice hamburgers aren't even on the menu at that place you at. Where you eat at, you all don't eat hamburgers down there. Y'all do something different. You brought the hamburger menu to me. But I couldn't help but notice You're not eating off that menu. Now, why did you have to go and do that? Why did you have to go and open that can of worms? Why couldn't you just eat the menu that we gave you, that we gave your grandfathers and your grandmothers and your great-grandfathers and your great-grandmothers? Why couldn't you just do that? Because, yeah, that wanting something not on the menu thing, well, the problem with that is, you see, the only way you can get that one is if you take it off of my plate. Well, didn't you steal it off of ours to begin with? Well, it seems that we've reached an impasse, haven't we? That's when things get ugly. That's when they start gunning your profits down. That's when they start murdering people in their beds. Peace to Fred Hampton. That's when folks start disappearing. That's when people start getting redlined. That's when freeways start getting put through. That's when you have a prison industrial complex and mass incarceration across the board. That's when that gets kicked off. That's when the bombs start dropping and the buildings start exploding and the neighborhood goes up in flames. That's when that starts to happen. When you have black folk talking about owning something, holding something, when you start talking about power, wealth, and influence, that's when folks start dying. That's when the bullets start flying. That's when folks start getting moved out as a group. That's when that starts occurring. That's when you start seeing the white supremacists taken to the streets and marching. Right when we start saying those things. And it was Malcolm who was steadfast and was the most prominent voice at a critical juncture that kept repeating endlessly that that was exactly what it had to be. And let us be very, very clear about this. Malcolm said it multiple times and it's still true today. His aim was not that we just be a bunch of black folks out there and say revolution and we gonna take a block. The man's message was founded and based upon economics, that we must control the economies of our communities from the very beginning. It was the teaching that was given to him by Elijah Muhammad that had been passed down before Elijah Muhammad. We all understood that, or at least most of us should have, that they hate us because we're black, okay, but they're able to victimize us because we're poor. Control of our economy, that's the name of the game. You are not a viable people if you do not control the resources and the means of production. If other people control your resources and your means of production, you can be a servant. You can never be a master. You can never control yourself. You'll never control it yourself. Understand where we are as a people today, and Malcolm talked about this decades ago. History repeats itself. History repeats itself because as time has gone on, we have had to define these things again ourselves. We have had to define these things ourselves, and that has not been easy. Because what happened is the civil rights generation got up and walked off the field. We were supposed to have something to build on, and the civil rights generation got up and walked off the field. They were bought off. They were bought off quickly, and they were bought off easily. And we've had to step up and analyze exactly what went wrong. We've had to do a post-mortem on it, and that reminds us of what Malcolm X said about history. History is most qualified to reward our efforts. What I want to do, because I would be remiss if I did not do this, I want to play for you some of this for those of you who never heard Malcolm before actually give a speech, and if your attention span is long enough for that. One of his most famous speeches, the House Negro and the Field Negro. Now, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I do want to go over some parts here that I think are very, very important and will sound very familiar to you.
We want to have just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand. We all agree tonight, all of the speakers have agreed that America has a very serious problem. Not only does America have a very serious problem, but our people have a very serious problem. America's problem is us. We're her problem. The only reason she has a problem is she doesn't want us here. And every time you look at yourself, be you black, brown, red, or yellow, a so-called Negro, you represent a person who poses such a serious problem for America because you're not wanted. Once you face this as a fact, then you can start plotting a course that will make you appear intelligent instead of unintelligent.
Now, let me go ahead and address that first of all. When Malcolm X talked about black and brown and red and yellow, let us understand at that point in time, we were accepted and acknowledged by everybody as the leaders and the trendsetters and the vanguard of plotting the course forward. Everybody got in lockstep behind us. There were a few stragglers who tried to do it without us and they never made nothing. All of these people acknowledged us. That was the difference. There was not conflict about it so much at that time. Everybody acknowledged us as the trendsetter. Everyone acknowledged us as the game changer. That was the difference back then. They fell in lockstep behind us. There's a reason why decades later, Tiananmen Square and these places, they're holding up pictures of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They got the message. In these places that had been stuck in time for the 1960s, they understood, hey, these are the folks. Down there in Cuba, they understood, these are the folks. We were openly acknowledged by them then. At that time, you did not have the so-called 5 civilized tribes attempting to oust us and to disown us. You didn't have that back then. That was the difference. You have something totally different now, by the way, but just to clarify about that, you have something different now.
What you and I need to do is learn to forget our differences. When we come together, we don't come together as Baptists or Methodists. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist, and you don't catch hell because you're a Methodist. You don't catch hell because you're a Methodist or a Baptist. You don't catch hell because you're a Democrat or a Republican. You don't catch hell because you're a Mason or an Elk. And you sure don't catch hell because you're an American, because if you was an American, you wouldn't catch no hell. You catch hell because you're a black man. You catch hell, all of us catch hell for the same reason.
Now, let me go ahead and take a moment to acknowledge this part of his speech. This is a core element that we created. We are the only place on this planet where that particular statement grew roots. It took root and it flourished here. It didn't work in the Caribbean. It doesn't work back on the continent in Africa. It doesn't work in most any other place. The only places it kind of has worked are the ones that followed our lead. If you go to Britain and the few places it does work, it followed our lead. But you don't have any other place where they've been able to sit there and say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the hallmark of what we believe in. This is a hallmark of what we believe in. We believe in removing those boundaries and borders and boundaries, and that we are one people. The things that we have differences about got to be put to the side. Let me remind you, this is not a conversation that takes place back on the continent. There is no African version of Malcolm X unless you take Julius Malema. But there is no African version. There is no African who's over there on the continent who's made headway telling the people that from the crown to the cape to the horn that we are one people. You don't have that. I didn't say you don't have people over there saying it. I'm saying it hasn't taken root. The people have animosity towards that philosophy. The people don't embrace it. That's the difference. It took root here. It found fertile soil here. And these other places, it hasn't taken root to this day. Still working on it. Every time you turn around, there's some internecine fight within those countries themselves. Ethiopia, Rwanda, Nigeria, Sudan. There's South Africa. It's still about what tribe you from. After all these decades and after witnessing us, it's still about what tribe you're from. It hasn't taken root yet. In the Caribbean, it hasn't taken root yet. You have your small little enclaves, but what they're not doing is saying we are one people. That ain't happening. It's not happening. And you know why? Because they become comfortable with their servitude. You are not going to get this to take root in the Dominican Republic. And the reason that you won't is because the so-called black folk over there, in order for this to take root, they would have to accept that they're not white. And they utterly refuse to do that. It's not taking root in Haiti. And you're not going to get it to take root in Haiti because in order to get them to accept that, you'd have to get them to accept that they're not French. And they're unwilling to do that. In Jamaica, you'd have to convince them that they're not British. And they're unwilling to do that. In America, nobody's got to really convince us of what we are not. We've already accepted that centuries ago. In these other places, you have to wrench it from their dead hands. Which is what the fight is always over. In Rwanda, that's what it was over, by the way. Let's just be honest about that. If you ever saw the movie Hotel Rwanda, by the way, yes, that was brutally honest. They didn't stay on the subject very much, but then they didn't need to. If you're not going to investigate that, I guess you're too intellectually lazy to do so. But yeah, they were telling the truth about that there too. The ones who could swagger more like the French and they had more aquiline features. And so them fellows over there. The ones who thought they looked more European. And to this day, you got Africa divided up and sliced up like that. And I don't want to sit up here and just single out the French or the Belgians or the Russians. I don't want to just single them out. I want you to understand what you're dealing with. Every time you turn around, they do that. They've carved up the whole place. And you have places that are receptive to it. Because you would have to convince them that what they're not. And even the places that claim that they're kicking out the French, for example. I've told you all, if people keep calling me and asking, Jason, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? What do you think about that? And my whole thing has been, tell me what they come up with after that, because so far I see them wanting to seize the economy or seize the land, but I'm more concerned about the identity. That's the part I'm looking for.
So we are all black people, so-called Negroes, second-class citizens, ex-slaves. You are nothing but an ex-slave. You don't like to be told that. But what else are you? You are ex-slave. You didn't come here on the Mayflower. You came here in a slave ship, in chains, like a horse or a cow or a chicken. And you were brought here by the people who came here on the Mayflower. You were brought here by the so-called pilgrims or founding fathers. They were the ones who brought you here. We have a common enemy. We have this in common. We have a common oppressor, a common exploiter, and a common discriminator. So once we all realize that we have this common enemy, then we unite on the basis of what we have in common. And what we have foremost in common is that enemy, the white man. He's an enemy to all of us. I know some of you all think that some of them aren't enemies. Time will tell. In Bandung, back in I think 1954, was the first unity meeting in centuries of black people. And once you study what happened at the Bandung Conference and the results of the Bandung Conference, it actually serves as a model for the same procedure you and I can use to get our problem solved.
All right, now, if you all haven't looked up the Bandung, B-A-N, the Bandung Conference, that's what he's referring to here. Now, it's a little bit of an anecdote in history there, but it is worth looking at. By the way, when you Google it, one of the first things you'll come across is a CIA paper on it, by the way. So Malcolm was talking about it then, and what do you know? The conference that he's referring to, yeah, CIA all over it.
At Bandung, all the nations came together. They were dark nations from Africa and Asia. Some of them were Buddhists. Some of them were Muslim. Some of them were Christian. Some of them were Confucianists. Some were atheists. Despite their religious differences, they came together. Some were communists. Some were socialists. Some were capitalists. Despite their economic and political differences, they came together. All of them were black, brown, red, or yellow. The number one thing that was not allowed to attend the Bandung Conference was the white man.
And who do you think they learned that from? By the way, who do you think all those people learned that from? All these colonized people, and who gave them the idea that, hey, by the way, yeah, you can run something here and not have troublemakers in the midst? Who showed them that example?
Couldn't come. Once they excluded the white man, they found that they could get together. Once they kept him out, everybody else fell right in and fell in line. This is the thing that you and I have to understand. And these people who came together didn't have nuclear weapons. They didn't have jet planes. They didn't have all of the heavy armaments that the white man has. But they had unity. They were able to submerge their little petty differences and agree on one thing, that though one African came from Kenya and was being colonized by the Englishmen, and another African came from the Congo and was being colonized by the Belgian, and another African came from Guinea and was being colonized by the French, and another came from Angola and was being colonized by the Portuguese. When they came to the Bandung Conference, they looked at the Portuguese and at the Frenchmen and at the Englishmen and at the other Dutchmen, and learn or realize that the one thing that all of them had in common, they were all from Europe. They were all Europeans, blonde, blue-eyed, and white-skinned. They began to recognize who their enemy was. The same man that was colonizing our people in Kenya was colonizing our people in the Congo. The same one in the Congo was colonizing our people in South Africa and in southern Rhodesia and in Burma and in India and in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. They realized all over the world where a dark man was being oppressed, he was being oppressed by the white man. Where the dark man was being exploited, he was being exploited by the white man. So they got together under this basis, that they had a common enemy. And when you and I here in Detroit and in Michigan and in America, who have been awakened today, look around us, we too realize here in America, we all have a common enemy. Whether he's in Georgia or Michigan, whether he's in California or New York, he's the same man. Blue eyes and blonde hair and pale skin.
Now, the point that he was making here is that our condition was not accidental. our condition is deliberate. It's engineered. It didn't just come out of nowhere. There's not just some intangible in the ether. There's a specific tangible individual you can point to. It's like, hey, that guy over there is the one doing it. This is why we don't need Kamala Harris to sit up here and tell us what the problem is. We know what the problem is. But we're focused on is, okay, what do we do about it? Don't tell me about the problem, man. What are you going to do? Because we already told you what needs to be done. And the issue that we have is for those who do not come from our lineage, there's where you get the pushback from and the resistance from, and they carry over what they were doing back where they came from. At that time, Malcolm was rather optimistic about getting everybody on board for that. History has kind of shown us something slightly different. But by the way, the same things we're talking about now on a global scale, folks, they heard it decades ago. Decades.
Same man. So what we have to do is what they did. They agreed to stop quarreling among themselves. Any little spat that they had, they'd settle it among themselves. Go into a huddle. Don't let the enemy know that you got a disagreement.
Well, that's very interesting because you see, every time we turn around, there's a Coleman Cruz or there's a Candace Owens. And you got some other buck dancers. You got some Tim Scotts out there. But we police them. The message we have here is that if there is an issue like that, you don't sit up here. Like here on the Black Channel, I'm talking among the people here. I'm talking among the people. I'm not calling in CBS or white-owned BET to be a referee. See, there's a critical difference. I'm not calling them in to be a referee. Dr. John Henry Clark taught us about this. Malcolm was talking about that. Beware these people. You have to beware these folks who sit up here and talk about, ooh, I'm going to tell the white folks. You have to beware those. Those are the folks holding up their banner that, hello, I'm the traitor. When they start sitting up here suggesting to you and telling you that they are going to involve the dominant society in what we're doing, that's a warning to all of us. When you got the one who stands up and does that, that's the warning to all of us. Oh, you're with them. See, folks, it's not hard to identify them. It's about whether or not you have the will to accept the obvious. Oh, you're with them. You're working with those folks. You see, when you have a code of conduct as a people, then you hold each other to a standard because you have a code of conduct. And what you're looking for is anybody who is off code. You don't get to cry and moan and whine your way about why you broke code. The code is the ruler. The code is the leader. And your job is to identify those who are off code. This is the reason why cooperating with other people tends to be futile. They don't have a code. We start talking and then they show up and everybody starts talking about how you don't need one. And let me go ahead and say this, because we are the only people we are the only group who has created one. Those of us who draw our lineage from the soil here, we're the only ones who actually demonstrated that we could constitute and institute and create a code of conduct. And it is spread around the world. And it's the template that everybody else trying to get their act together uses, including non-black people. So since we are the ones who have clearly demonstrated that we've mastered it, everybody needs to fall in line with the trendsetter. Everyone needs to fall in line behind the leader because we've shown that we're the ones who made a viable template for it. Everybody else who shows up wanting to alter things is, oh, well, who sent you? Oh, them folks sent you and said, y'all need to change what you're doing. Yeah, you need to change what you're doing over here. You need to realize it's not really about that stuff you all talking about. It's not about race, it's about class. It's not about race, it's about class. Then you start getting into that. Do you notice these folks who don't come from our lineage here and jump into discussion, the ones who follow us talk about it's about race. The ones who don't start talking about it's about class, it's about something else. Why are you blaming these people here? Why are you putting at their feet there? It's about something else. And the real thing they're letting you know is that at the end of the day, if you do not give them a white person to bow to, then they will bring one in the room and expect the rest of us to start bowing. That's the problem.
Instead of us airing our differences in public, we have to realize we're all the same family. And when you have a family squabble, you don't get out on the sidewalk. If you do, everybody calls you uncouth, unrefined, uncivilized, savage. If you don't make it at home, you settle it at home. You get in the closet, argue it out behind closed doors. And then when you come out on the street, you pose a common front, a united front. And this is what we need to do in the community and in the city and in the state. We need to...
Now, let me go ahead and back that up because I want you to hear this part one more time.
Don't let the enemy know that you got a disagreement. Instead of us airing our differences in public, we have to realize we're all the same family. And when you have a family squabble, you don't get out on the sidewalk. If you do, everybody calls you uncouth, unrefined, uncivilized, savage. If you don't make it at home, you settle it at home. You get in the closet, argue it out behind closed doors. And then when you come out on the street, you pose a common front, a united front. And this is what we need to do in the community and in the city and in the state. We need to stop airing our differences in front of the white man. Put the white man out of our meeting, number one. And then...
Now, this is the critical difference between the Candace Owenses and the Coleman Cruzes and the scamming race grifters who make money selling coonin to white folk. They go and look for a white audience and a white massa with which to discuss black people in front of. That's the difference. We here we are not looking for a white person to go and discuss our issues in front of. We're not looking for a Matt Walsh or a Ben Shapiro to discuss black folk in front of, because Ben Shapiro is not looking for a group of black people to discuss Jewish people in front of. As a matter of fact, you saw Candace Owens found out firsthand what happened when she attempted to butt into a Jewish conversation. Candace Owens had the gall to even express that she had an opinion on a Jewish conversation. And then take a look at what happened. Then take a look at what happened. They won't let you talk to them like that. You don't get to horn in on their conversations. You try to talk, when they're talking about them, they're like, hey, you need to butt out. That's what they tell you. You need to butt out. They don't sit up here and look for you. We ain't looking for a powwow. When we're discussing our people, we ain't looking for a powwow to have you in. When they discuss their people, they want Jewish people to be the only ones who weigh in on that. You don't get to say a word. But when you start talking about black folk, is Ben Shapiro available? Hello? Hey, Daily Wire, is Ben in? Is Ben in? Can we talk to Ben? Can we go ahead and talk to Ben? Yeah, is Ben here? Yeah, I'd like to talk. Ben said he want to talk to us about, let me tell you what's wrong with black folk. You don't get to bring Ben Shapiro over to discuss what's wrong with Jewish people. Ben's not going to discuss that with you. The Daily Wire will not even begin that conversation with you. You don't get to sit as a group of black folk and Ben Shapiro tells you what's wrong with Jewish people. That's a conversation that's going nowhere. If you even attempt to do that, if you work for him, you're going to get fired. And if you try to call him in for the interview, he's not going to return your emails. They don't have a discussion with you about what Jewish people ain't doing and what they wrong about and what their evils and ills are and what they need to get right about themselves. You don't get to do that. And yet, when you're dealing with these off-code people, the off-code people, is easy to identify them because next thing you know, they're looking for white folk to discuss us in front of. Well, here, I'm going to invite them into it. And that is the reason that we are coaching these things in the terms that we are doing now. We're coaching it in these terms and we're framing it in these terms now because it is essential to get everybody's house in order. It is essential now to get everyone's house in order. So understand something. This is discipline that we are invoking now. We have a bunch of folks who haven't made progress and they're coming over here and they're making things messy and murky. And it is essential, if you're going to get everybody on code, then what we've done is we haven't done what the tether class does. We've taken you over here among the people. We're having this conversation among the people. We haven't invited any outsiders over here. We're having this conversation among the people. We're getting these folks straightened out among the people. I'm not bringing in a bunch of non-black folk here to sit here and discuss about, well, you know what we usually do. Let me tell you what they're doing wrong over there. Now, that's what them folks do when they get off the boat. Well, you know, these are cartels over here. That's the problem. Yes, I will help you with that. The problem is them. But you see, we stay on code because we understand that as soon as you bring them people into it, next thing you know, you're not talking to them anymore. They're the ones talking to you. They're the ones talking to you. They're the ones doing that. This is why we have been starting now to say we're not beating up on anybody here. We're letting you know you hella off code, man. You're not children. Despite their pathetic attempts to become children of the dominant society, you're not children. We're going to talk to you, get you straightened out now. Hey, dude, you off code. Furthermore, you crossing boundaries. You are off code. That white ass kissing stuff you focused on and learned where you come from, that ain't it. We ain't doing that. That's not allowed. There's the difference. We're not doing the Candace Owens Coleman Cruz thing and finding a white audience or a white group to drag them in front of. We're not doing that. We're taking them to the people and saying, okay, we're taking care of that. In the chat room, make sure you get Plock's information here. They're going to call up when they open up the phone lines. They have questions. I have answers. So understand, people, we are 100,000% in the right. We are 100,000% in the right because this is what Malcolm talked about. If you do have an issue, and we do, We are going to see to that issue and rectify that issue among the people. But we ain't going to sit up here and kid glove it and pussyfoot it and sit up here and hold your hand. And, well, do you feel like stopping your cooning yet? Oh, you don't? A little bit more you need to understand? Okay, you messing things up for everybody else over here, but can we talk about your feelings? Look here, get your ass. No, we're going to deal with it from the street. We're going to deal with it from the street. That's what we're doing. And that is what it means to be on code. Malcolm talked about it 6 decades ago. It is just as accurate today as it was 6 decades ago. Don't let anybody sit up here and try to shame you or bully you into thinking that we need to change how we approach this. No, we don't. This is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. They're off code. We sitting here and getting their heads right and letting them know that we will not compromise. And that is the reason why there must be a difference in language. Just as we talked about the house nigga and the field negro, we have a different word for you. You don't get to be called by the same word as us if you're not on code. If you are on code, you're one of us. If you are off code, you're one of them. Domestically, they're the coons, and internationally, if they come over here, they're the tethers. Well, dude, we got a word for you. You're either with us or you're not. If you are with us, ain't no need to talk about it. If you are conflicted about that, that's probably because you're not actually with us. If you're catching feelings over it, you're probably not really with us. So that part bothers them. It's like, oh boy, you gonna stop me from cooning out? I can't chase Zaddy. I feel some kind of way. I feel like you get me set up for something here. Okay. Take your lips off of Zaddy's butt cheeks. Maybe you'll start to feel a little bit differently here. It's like, yeah, you can't make it like that. That's probably why you feel some kind of way. But I'm just saying, if you get White Zaddy's butt cheeks off your lips, and you might, this probably won't bother you so much. You trying to get a Ziploc grip on it, and can I do that? So no, that is why we have always had different language in order to differentiate and distinguish who is with us and who isn't. The folks who are with us, they know they with us. The folks who are offended, they know they're not. Like, yeah, I'm not really with you. Yeah, I'm not really with you. I'm trying to figure out how to have one foot over here and, see if me and Zaddy can make it on the low. So, okay. The folks who are not looking for that anymore, whether you're from Kenya or Kentucky, the folks who aren't looking for that doesn't bother them. They're like, look here, I ain't looking for none of that. I identify with you. I identify with you. That's a big difference involved. So when we speak about these things differently, that's because it's mandatory. This is how you distinguish who is on code from who is not. And that is essential.
And sit down and talk shop with each other. That's all you gotta do. I would like to make a few comments concerning the difference between the Black Revolution and the Negro Revolution.
We have a long tradition here. As the foundational descendants of the slaves, we have a long tradition of being on code. And part of the code is that we created our own terms and our own labels and our own words. These were not terms given to us by the dominant society. These were terms we created ourselves. These are terms and words that we gave meaning to. So you see, we have a long history of distinguishing ourselves. Some of you say delineating yourselves. We have a long history of saying, hey, here's the name for folks who are on code, and here's the name for those who are not. This isn't something that we just invented since the immigrant class started proliferating here. That's not something we just stumbled into. This is our culture. And yes, it is unique. That's the other thing that bothers some of the sensitive ones out there, is that, by the way, they don't have an equivalent to this. There is no equivalent of the Caribbean coon. It's just we Caribbean. There is no Caribbean off code. There's no African off code. It's just we African. I'm Zimbabwean. I'm Nigerian. There is no word that they use for, hey, that fella over there, he's off code. He ain't one of us. He doesn't represent the people. They don't have a word like that among their group. No wonder what we do and what we say is so startling to them. No wonder, because they're used to everybody's just the same. So you mean sitting next to your traitors and your backstabbers and your white ass, they're all the same too? They all get to sit here too, and you sit here and sympathize with them and empathize with them. Well, no wonder you can't get anything done. In your world, traitors and heroes are the same. In your world, a traitor and a hero are the same person. No wonder you can't get nothing done. No wonder you can't make anything happen. You see traitors and heroes as being equivalent. Then you meet us and we ain't playing that bull jive, and then all of a sudden, oh, something wrong with y'all over there, dude. You are not working together with the people. No, this is working together with the people. We're making it very clear. So this, you want to know what our culture is? Yeah, here's another thing that we have that you don't. Our culture, we created the culture of making a distinction. We have fearlessly defined the difference between on code and off code. And that has defined the terms of engagement and who we count on and who we don't.
There's a difference. Are they both the same? And if they're not, what is the difference? What is the difference between a black revolution and a Negro revolution? First, what is a revolution? Sometimes I'm inclined to believe that many of our people are using this word revolution loosely, without taking careful consideration what this word actually means and what its historic characteristics are. When you study the historic nature of revolutions, the motive of a revolution, the objective of a revolution, and the result of a revolution, and the methods used in a revolution, you may change words. You may devise another program. You may change your goal and you may change your mind. Look at the American Revolution in 1776. That revolution was for what? For land. How was it? Why did they want land? Independence. How was it carried out? Bloodshed. Number one, it was based on land. The basis of independence. And the only way they could get it was bloodshed. The French Revolution, what was it based on? The landless against the landlord. What was it for? Land. How did they get it? Bloodshed. Was no love lost. Was no compromise. Was no negotiation. I'm telling you, you don't know what our revolution is. Because when you find out what it is, you'll get back in the alley. You'll get out of the way. Just a moment. The Russian Revolution. What was it based on? Land. the landless against the landlord.
Now, there's a reason why I am letting this play as long as I am. There's a reason why I'm doing that. I'm doing that because I want you all to understand something. I want you to understand. He's going through this long list, and there's a context I want you to get when he finishes this list of all these places that have had all these revolutions, these violent uprisings.
How did they bring it about? Bloodshed. You haven't got a revolution that doesn't involve bloodshed. And you're afraid to bleed. I said you're afraid to bleed. Long as the white man sent you to Korea, you bled. He sent you to Germany, you bled. He sent you to the South Pacific to fight the Japanese, you bled. You bleed for white people. But when it comes time to seeing your own churches being bombed and little black girls murdered, you haven't got no blood.
Now, I want to define a context here for you. When Malcolm X is talking about revolution and the fact that these revolutions have been violent uprisings, he's trying to define something first. The first thing he's trying to define for you is these groups that oppress you and dominate you. They have, take a look at their histories, not his words, take a look at their history. They have no reservation about killing people. And they do it to this very day. If you are an obstacle between what they want, they have absolutely no reservation about murdering you. So when you are dealing with people for whom murder, even mass murder, is always an option on the table, then you simply cannot be a person who characterizes freeing yourself if you don't understand that those are the terms and the language they understand. You can't free yourself under that circumstance. When you're dealing with people who murder and kill whole nations. So first and foremost, he's putting the context of the folks he's talking about. He's talking technically of all these nations, all these white supremacist, historically white supremacist nations. And by the way, I want to let it keep playing here because a lot of you, if you've never actually heard this entire speech, if you've only heard snippets of it and whatnot, he actually makes a reference to that, to what I just said. He's not naming these places from nowhere. You notice all the places he just named. These are all white countries. Did you notice that? All these revolutions he talked about, by the way, did you notice who they are? And then he puts it in the context.
You bleed when the white man says bleed. You bite when the white man says bite. And you bark when the white man says bark. I hate to say this about us, but it's true. How you gonna be nonviolent in Mississippi as violent as you were in Korea? How can you justify being nonviolent in Mississippi and Alabama when your churches are being bombed and your little girls are being murdered, and at the same time you're gonna get violent with Hitler and Tojo and somebody else that you don't even know?
Show me where the Malcolm X of Jamaica is. Show me where the Malcolm X of Puerto Rico is. Show me where the Malcolm X of Cuba is. Show me where the Malcolm X of Haiti is. Show me where the Malcolm X of the Dominican Republic is. Show me where the Malcolm X who talk like what you just heard right there is. Show me him. Show him. Go ahead and name him. No, don't tell me about no Rastafarians. Name him. Say the name. And we should all be able to recognize who it is if he actually exists. If you're not just making it up. You should be able to name them. An individual who sat there and talked to you and said what you just heard right there, which is, by the way, it's like, hey, take a look here. We have no problem blowing up and killing folks when white folk tell us jump. But by the way, where are we doing that? And understand, we're only 14% of the population here. We are not the majority population here. I've been showing you video after video, story after story, where we're undermined by the national government. But it's easy to do if you're 14% of the population. We're talking about places where you're 90 and 95% of the population. How the hell can that be? How the hell can that be? When you take a look at the story of Mohammed Mossadegh in Iran, Mohammed Mossadegh was in Iran taking a look at all the money that the British were stealing from the oil industry. And Mohammed Mossadegh said, yeah, we're nationalizing these oil refineries. Y'all gangstered your way up in here, we gangstering it back. And they had to get together and kill him. And that's why Iran has always been the hardliner that it is today. Iran has always been the hardliner that it is today, because when the Ayatollahs came up after Mossadegh. Talk about your elected governments. Well, they chose Mossadegh. The white folk got together and said, yeah, kill him. We'll put the royal family back in place. Don't these backwards people in the Middle East, don't they want a royal family? Well, they'll buy that. Bring the Shah back in and we'll put him in place. And then the Ayatollahs, the clerics, the Islamic clerics got together. And the man who has always stood as an icon to those of us who were children, Ayatollah Khomeini. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell that story there. Khomeini understood what the hell he was about to go up against. He was about to go up against the most well-financed and violent military on the face of the planet that has gone around murdering people and knocking over regimes. He understood what he was about to go toe-to-toe with. He saw what they did to Mossadegh, but he stood firm. And Khomeini sent out an edict that every picture or photograph of him smiling was to be burned and destroyed. That if anybody had a picture or photograph of anything of him smiling, you're to get rid of that. He wanted the image, the brand of Iran. He wanted to rebrand Iran. We are not the smiling Anglo nation here. No, I'm serious. And he wanted you to know that when you looked at the man who was running Iran, yeah, we're not smiling Mossadegh anymore. You shown us your fangs. We were talking to you before and we were reasoning with you before. Now you're murdering us? Yeah, we're done smiling. We're done smiling. That was a man who was serious. And those are the lessons that they learned. And when you take a look around the Caribbean and Africa, by the way, what do you not see? You see people sitting up here talking about forgiving. And meanwhile, you're being overrun by outsiders. These are supposed to be some of the wealthiest places on the planet, but they're not. And we're 14% of the population. And we've gotten far more done. Oh, wait a minute, we have a different code. And we learned that from the likes of Malcolm.
If violence is wrong in America, violence is wrong abroad. If it's wrong to be violent, defending black women and black children and black babies and black men, then it's wrong for America to draft us and make us violent abroad in defense of her. The Chinese Revolution, they wanted land. They threw the British out, along with the Uncle Tom Chinese. Yeah, they did. They set a good example. When I was in prison, I read an article, and don't be shocked when I say I was in prison. You still in prison.
Let's go ahead and deal with that right quick here. You know, when you got highfalutin, snooty Negroes who sit up here from their academic backgrounds, from their HBCUs and whatnot, Dr. John Henry Clark had to go ahead and break it down to the street and let you know that when it came to the revolutionaries were the street cats. The revolutionaries was the roughnecks. The revolutionaries was the gangsters. Let's be clear about that. The revolutionaries were the gangsters. All the college educated folk, they would go off to war and go do whatever the dominant society's bidding word was. The people who wasn't doing that, that was the street cats. That was the dudes with a rap sheet. That was the dudes who would go upside your head. Those were the fellas who was about that life. Those were the ones who put up the most resistance, not your academics looking at you, Michael Eric Dyson, Mark Lamont Hill. Both of you would sit up here and shave and oil up your booty cheeks. That's what our academics do in their pathetic attempts to get yet another cast-off, hand-me-down job or position. The street cats wasn't gonna do that. The street cats wasn't sitting up here going on the route twerking. The street cats wasn't gonna be disrespected. That was the difference. You couldn't talk to the street cats crazy and everything goes straight for you. The street cats were like, no. Respect gonna begin with how you talk to me. Respect is gonna begin there. That's how you ended up with films sitting up here telling you, well, look here, fella. We can settle this like you got some class, Mr. Charlie. Or we can get into some gangster stuff. It can go either which way. That wasn't your academics talking like that. That wasn't your academics doing that. The street cats did that. Back then, they were real worried about that. Back then, they were real worried about that. What happened here? I'm just letting y'all know. I'm reminding you. By the way, if you want to know who it was who got things lit and got things popping, damn right, Eldridge Cleaver, Huey Newton, the gangsters and the G's are the ones who kicked off the movement and kept it sustained. The gangsters and the G's were the ones who took to the streets. And after Trayvon Martin, it was the gangsters and the G's taking to the streets then too. Back then, they were sitting up there wanting to sit up here and try to shame folks for that. But by the way, I just got to remind you that when you want to talk about the folks who was about that life, about that business in them damn streets, that hard line, these were fellas who wasn't no stranger to staring down the police, wasn't no stranger to a jail cell, wasn't no stranger to a rap sheet. And when it was time to put in work, they wasn't no stranger to stomping them out. No wonder we made headway. They weren't trying to be a part of their, quote, respectable society. They wanted to be empowered. Big difference. Oh yeah, that's our legacy through Malcolm too.
That's what America means, prison. When I was in prison, I read an article in Life magazine showing a little Chinese girl, 9 years old.
Now, here's a part right here I want y'all to listen to. I want you to listen to this story he's about to tell you.
When I was in prison, I read an article in Life magazine showing a little Chinese girl, 9 years old. Her father was on his hands and knees, and she was pulling the trigger because he was an Uncle Tom Chinaman. Yeah. When they had the revolution over there, they took a whole generation of Uncle Toms, just wiped them out. Yeah. And within 10 years, that little girl became a full-grown woman. No more Toms in China. And today it's one of the toughest, roughest, most feared countries on this earth.
Did you get that? Did you get that? He sat there and told you that they went about on a campaign to ferret out everybody who still had allegiance to something other than China. And within a decade, it's actually closer to 2 decades, but you get the idea. Within a decade, you didn't have an Uncle Tom problem in China anymore. You didn't have that problem anymore. That's why we are going all in and stomping down on the coon issue. So that when we get up here in a decade, nobody in living memory is sitting up here talking about how admired they were. Nobody was talking about that. Nobody was talking about how admired they were. That's why we are making these lines very clear cut. We're making these lines very clear cut now. Yes, we're calling them coons. We got names for them. We going to work on that now. Because you have a government that supports that. And if you don't identify them, you can't deal with it. The issue is what makes us different from other folk here is we don't have our traitors sitting next to us and folks patting him on the back and shaking hands and making a place at the table for him and making him comfortable.
They took a whole generation of Uncle Toms, just wiped them out. And within 10 years, that little girl became a full-grown woman. No more Toms in China. And today it's one of the toughest, roughest, most feared countries on this earth by the white man. Because there are no Uncle Toms over there.
Meanwhile, in America, they're importing ours.
Of all our studies, history is best qualified to reward all research. And when you see that you got problems, all you have to do is examine the historic method used all over the world by others who had problems similar to yours. And once you see how they got theirs straight, then you know how you can get yours straight. Please. There's been a revolution, a black revolution going on in Africa. In Kenya, the Mau Mau were revolutionaries. They were the ones who made the word uhuru. They were the ones who brought it to the fore. The Mau Mau, they were revolutionaries.
Well, they had a good start. We helped get a good start there at least.
They believed in scorched earth. They knocked everything aside that got in their path. And their revolution also was based on land, a desire for land. In Algeria, the northern part of Africa, a revolution took place. The Algerians were revolutionists. They wanted land. France offered to let them be integrated into France. They told France to hell with France. They wanted some land, not some France. And they engaged in a bloody battle. So I cite these various revolutions, brothers and sisters, to show you, you don't have a peaceful revolution. You don't have a turn the other cheek revolution. There's no such thing as a nonviolent revolution. Only kind of revolution that's nonviolent is the Negro revolution. The only revolution based on loving your enemy is the Negro revolution. The only revolution in which the goal is a desegregated lunch counter, a desegregated theater, a desegregated park, and a desegregated public toilet. You can sit down next to white folks on the toilet.
I'm sure Candace Owens loves that aspect of it. And especially Coleman Cruz. Oh, that nigga's jumping up, peeking over the top of each of the stalls. Hey, is there a white man in here somewhere?
That's no revolution. Revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. The white man knows what a revolution is. He knows that the black revolution is worldwide in scope and in nature. The black revolution is sweeping Asia, sweeping Africa. It's rearing its head in Latin America. The Cuban Revolution, that's a revolution. They overturned the system. Revolution is in Asia. Revolution is in Africa. And the white man is screaming because he sees revolution in Latin America. How do you think he'll react to you when you learn what a real revolution is? You don't know what a revolution is. If you did, you wouldn't use that word. A revolution is bloody. Revolution is hostile. Revolution knows no compromise. Revolution overturns and destroys everything that gets in its way. And you sitting around here like a knot on these folks, no matter how much they hate me. No, you need a revolution.
Sad to say, in America, they don't listen to black folk till we take to the streets. They don't listen to black folk till we take to the streets. They start talking that garbage about they burned down their own neighborhoods. If that was the case there, you wouldn't be calling the National Guard. Don't try that lie. Out there in Atlanta, y'all saw that folks was downtown in Atlanta. Yikes. They were downtown in New York. Yikes. They were downtown in Minnesota. Yikes. No, we don't live downtown. They were downtown for that one. Oh, really? Okay, you couldn't tell that lie this time. It's like, oh, wait a minute. When folks took to the streets there, it's like, yeah, by the way, if we cannot all be equally comfortable, we will all be equally uncomfortable. Yes, I was at the CNN building in downtown Atlanta. That's why I'm like, yeah, when they showed the CNN building getting kicked in, I'm like, oh, that's the middle of downtown. That's not Decatur. That's not College Park. That's the middle of downtown. That is square in the middle of this. Oh, okay. Can't tell that lie this time.
Who ever heard of a revolution where they lock arms, as Reverend Cleage was pointing out beautifully, singing, "We shall overcome"? Just tell me you don't do that in a revolution. You don't do any singing, you're too busy swinging. It's based on land. A revolutionary wants land so he can set up his own nation, an independent nation. These Negroes aren't asking for no nation. They're trying to crawl back on the plantation.
When we talk about reparations, people understand we're talking about tangibles. We're not talking about a handshake. We're not talking about a pat on the back. We're not talking about smiling for a photo op. We're not talking about being accepted. We done swept all that to the side. Malcolm was talking about tangibles. That when you are talking about revolting against the system, the goal is to get tangibles. Not to have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. When you get up to go do that, it's supposed to be for tangibles. When the smoke clears, you're supposed to be discussing the tangibles. That we want something we can feel and hold in our hands. Something that we own and we control on account of the fact that your ownership and your control of it has been nothing short of exploitative and abusive. No, we're not leaving it in your hands anymore. From here on in, it needs to be in our hands. We're not counting on you to be our benevolent benefactors anymore. That's out the window. It's in our hands now.
When you want a nation, that's called nationalism. When the white man became involved in a revolution in this country against England, what was it for? He wanted this land so he could set up another white nation. That's white nationalism. The American Revolution was white nationalism. The French Revolution was white nationalism. The Russian Revolution too, yes, it was white nationalism. You don't think so? Why you think Khrushchev and Mao can't get their heads together?
Okay, now, I that was the part I wanted you all to hear when I said, by the way, Malcolm is naming those white nations. Remember, I remind you, he's naming all those white nations. I said he's going to come back and put that in context. So for those of you who want to be these hardline communists and whatnot, by the way, if you think Malcolm was on the same thing, you might want to check that again. Now, who he just referred to is Nikita Khrushchev and Mao. He was referring to Chairman Mao Tse-tung of China. He was referring to them. If you know your history, you know that China and Russia, for a little bit there, it looked like they were going to get things together, and you know they were going to go along with that. But China was like, y'all ain't really doing communism right, so they went off in their own direction and said, we ain't really trying to do that. You're not on code. So we're decades removed from it. If you don't know your history for Malcolm, these were things that were happening at the time he was alive. Here we are, 6 decades later. So if you don't know your history, you might not be aware of that. But in any case, that's what he's referring to. He's referring to that.
In this country against England, what was it for? He wanted this land so he could set up another white nation. That's white nationalism. The American Revolution was white nationalism. The French Revolution was white nationalism. The Russian Revolution, too, yes, it was white nationalism. You don't think so? Why you think Khrushchev and Mao can't get their heads together? White nationalism. All the revolutions that's going on in Asia, in Africa today are based on what? Black nationalism. A revolutionary is a black nationalist. He wants a Africa today are based on what? Black nationalism. Yes, it was white nationalism. You don't think so? Why you think Khrushchev and Mao can't get their heads together? White nationalism. All the revolutions that's going on in Asia, in Africa today are based on what? Black nationalism. Africa today are based on what? Black nationalism. All the revolutions that's going on in Asia, in Africa today are based on what? Black nationalism. All the revolutions that's going on in Asia, in Africa today are based on what? Black nationalism.
That was Malcolm 6 decades ago. What is he telling you? He's telling you that we here, we set the template that all these other folks who freed themselves plugged into. We set that template. They followed our example. They saw us rise up. They saw us make progress and headway. And next thing you know, it put a battery in the back of everybody else. That's him 6 decades ago, letting you know, hey, by the way, we're the ones who got this kicked off. And we're the ones who keep it going. That's not me talking. That's Malcolm talking decades ago. And I would submit to you that, relatively speaking, Malcolm, had he lived, might have been despondent. But then again, if Malcolm had kept living, he probably would have gotten more done. If Malcolm had stayed alive, he probably would have gotten more done. However, we have to deal with what we actually know here. So in his absence, if Malcolm just had to be sitting here watching the events and not taking part in it, he might have been despondent for that first couple of decades. But the kids are all right. The kids are all right. He's like, well, the kids got on code. The kids got it. The kids found it. The kids picked it up and ran with it. And like any other revolution, a revolution overturns and erases and removes and destroys anything that's in its way. The civil rights generation has been in the way. They're still in the way now. You only have a few malcontents among them, but as a group, the civil rights generation has fulfilled their desire to collaborate with the dominant society. So when we discuss revolution, when we discuss a social uprising, you cannot have sacred cows in that, and some of you are slaves to the collaborators. And Malcolm did not live. Malcolm was looking at the World War II generation. They were different. than the baby boomer generation. They were different from the civil rights generation. So you couldn't really make these criticisms of the World War II generation and the post-antebellum slavery generation. You couldn't really make these criticisms of them. We can make these criticisms of the civil rights generation. That's the difference. That's a critical key difference. There are many others, and we'll come to that. However, you might disagree. Therefore, the telephone lines are now open, and the number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the blackest radio program in existence, the only one of its kind on planet Earth today. As always, you're welcome to join us. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. My man, Mr. Richburg, thank you very much for your support, brother. We appreciate that. Stephen Coachman, Jack Edmonds, all the people here who become new members on the website, we appreciate that as well. A little more grace. Stephen Sam Ham, Brian Ellis, Melvin Cole Soldier, everybody else here, thank you very much for your support as well. If you've been instructed by my mods to call in, that's not just a nifty idea, that is an order. So the telephone lines have been opened up for you, and you here have your opportunity to be on the lines. They can be here or be gone, whichever they choose. We will gladly accommodate it. We're going to take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, we'll be just discussing this and more. This is The Black Channel.
Hello, my name is Steve Burgess. I'm the author of this book, Guidelines for the Successful Student, a closer look at parenting your school-aged child. In this book, I've explained the role of the parent and the student in addition to what accommodations, procedures, rewards and consequences and expectations that need to be in place to ensure student success from primary to high school. This book is available on Amazon.com. For more information, please visit my link tree at Easy One-on-One, and to access my latest podcast, A Teaching Moment with Mr. B. Thank you all for listening.
A white supremacist assassin seeks revenge. Corrupt FBI agents with evil intentions. Dangerous black collaborators dedicated to treason. Occam Jeffers must defeat them all and somehow survive. One misstep and he's a dead man. Join Occam Jeffers as he looks the devil in his blue eyes and tells him, Black first. A sequel to the underground hit War of the Heart, Spirit of 1811 Publishing presents God Love Us, on sale at Amazon. Pre-order and save today. Visit spiritOf1811publishing.com and show your love.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slavery and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening, and the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Your personal access code to The Black Channel. Just to let you all know here, if you've been instructed by my mods to call in, then you are not to use the chat room anymore because the phone lines are open. You can use the phone lines if you want to do any more speaking, but you're done speaking in the chat without that. They've got 2 minutes to be on the line. Otherwise, we'll just assume that they're trolling and they can be banned. We are discussing here tonight about not just the life and legacy of Malcolm X. We're not just discussing that. We're also taking a honest look here at what would they say? What would Brother Malcolm expect? And I would suggest to you all that contrary to the defeatist attitude of some people, some folks just say stuff because they want to get attention. I think that actually in many regards, there's been a remarkable job done by us, considering the fact that the entire force of the federal government went to work in its most diabolical effort ever, that they divorced you from your history and your origin, and then they went to work to try to divorce us from an entire decade. So the children grew up absolutely divorced from it with no frame of reference and being told that our goal should be integration. Can you imagine what a frightening prospect that would be for Brother Malcolm if he looked and saw the entire force of the federal government, the media, and everybody else went to work to try to tell the children and grandchildren that your entire purpose for existing is to integrate by any means possible. That's your job, is to be non-threatening and integrate. Can you imagine how frightened that Malcolm might have been to witness that and to see as they descended like this evil swarm of locusts on us? And you would have assumed that it would have worked. You would have assumed that that would have been Black empowerment's last stand. You would have assumed that it was all over and that Coonan was the future. That's what you would have assumed, and you would have been wrong. Truth crushed to earth eventually rose again. And the children and the grandchildren, even though the parents had sold them out, the children and the grandchildren, the problem was white supremacy didn't stop doing what it was doing. You see, you could have buried Malcolm if the dominant society had divorced itself from white supremacy. Then you could have buried Malcolm. So yes, you can kill Malcolm if you kill white supremacy. If you're willing to kill white supremacy, then yeah, you can kill Malcolm. He would never be mentioned again. He would never need to be. It wouldn't be necessary to mention him again because white supremacy would be gone. Oh, but they killed Malcolm and they kept doing what they were doing. And that was what set off the biological, sociological chain reaction that sent the children looking for that message, and sure enough, we found it. And when we did, everything changed. Again. Only this time we haven't let it go. Only this time we've stayed on it. Only this time they tried to buy off everybody, and even in a day and era where you have more distractions than you ever had before. You have more distractions than you ever have before. And yet we've used these things for our benefit, and now the message is louder than it's ever been. Despite the fact that we didn't have the true revolutionaries there with us, they killed them all. They killed them all. They exiled them all. They went to work to outlaw and exile all the true revolutionaries. So they said, okay, well, don't worry. The children will have no contact with them. The grandchildren will have no contact with them. And sure enough, as fate would have it, we went looking for them. And we found them. I think Malcolm would smile on that type of progress. It would have been very difficult to predict. It would have seemed unlikely. But I think he would smile knowing that even without that direct teaching and that direct instruction, that we still found our way there. I think he would be rather encouraged. That's not to say that we're where we're supposed to be, but their goal was to make sure that they completely derailed it and destroyed the movement in total. That was their goal, was to annihilate the movement. And yet here we are. They failed, which means Malcolm succeeded. And all we have to do now, all we have to do now is run our race. We're going to go ahead and go over here to the telephone lines. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Let me get caller from area code 609. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey. Listen.
Okay, what's your name, sir?
My name is Anonymous. I'm calling from Trenton, New Jersey.
Okay, Anonymous from Trenton. What's on your mind?
Yeah, what's on my mind is you talking about Malcolm X. Wasn't he an integrationist? Huh?
What part of Malcolm X led you to believe he's an integrationist?
Well, one thing he said in his book, I believe in recognizing every human being as a human being, neither white, black, brown, or red. And when you're dealing with humanity as a family, there's no question of integration or intermarriage. That's what he says in his book.
Okay. I've talked to you before. And
no, you haven't. You never talked to me. This is the first time
I have. Yes, I have. You tried this. We're going to mute him because he's psychotic and emotional. Remember, I talked to this guy before. As a matter of fact, I think I talked to him about Malcolm before. So just like the other ones there, they're cowards and liars. They can't just stand on what they've done. I think if you all remember, we talked to this guy before. He's tried this before to convince us that Malcolm was an integrationist. He cherry picks one or two sentences out of context, because if you don't have the entire context, it doesn't matter. He cherry picks one or two sentences out of context, and he tries to sell you on something. So there's a little bit of case in point there, but actually, yes, I have talked to this guy before. He's tried this before. Now he's like the rest of the cowards. He's going to try to lie and say that he's just like the Chicago tether. That ain't me. My name is Jack, and I'm from the Midwest. No, this is him. This is him. All right, now, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where you think you got that phrase from? Where do you think you got that from?
They got it from his autobiography.
Okay, who wrote his autobiography, sir? Sir, who wrote Malcolm's autobiography?
Alex Haley.
Alex Haley. And we all know that, by the way, Alex Haley frequently used passages or things that Malcolm did not actually say himself. We know that he frequently did that. Sir, everybody knows that Alex Haley frequently inserted things that Malcolm did not. Sir, last time, sir, you're not going to talk when the host is talking. You're a liar and a clown. Everybody knows that Alex Haley put things in that book that Malcolm did not actually say. He wasn't quoting Malcolm all the time. Now, everybody knows that. Did you know that?
So his book is a fraud?
Alex Haley inserted things that Malcolm X did not say. Everybody knows that. Did you not know that, sir? Were you ignorant? You're already ignorant, obviously. So what you're telling us is that you're quoting this book and you were unaware that Alex Haley had done that, and you were the fool walking around all this time thinking that this was some sort of quotation of Malcolm. And you didn't know that? You didn't know? Sir, you didn't know? Okay, what you're saying is while you were chewing crayons in your mama's slippers, you're saying you didn't know that Alex Haley was doing that?
You talking?
You didn't know that?
Never show your face, but you talk a lot.
Okay, sir, I will show my face to your mom and your sister. How about that?
Talking slick, man.
I'm not talking slick, sir. I'll show my face to your mom and your sister. How about that?
No, man.
Will you take their word for it?
No, you talking real slick. Let's get back to Malcolm, though. I'll deal with you another time.
Sir, you cannot deal with me, sir. Your IQ is too low and your ignorance is too high.
Right,
you quoted, sir, you've already delegitimized yourself. You've already quoted Alex Haley, and sir, you've quoted Alex Haley, And you've shown how ignorant and
Was he an
stupid you are.
integrationist or not?
Sir,
Yes
you
or no?
sir,
Was he
you
an
quoted that and you
integrationist or
showed
not?
how ignorant and stupid you are.
All right, let's talk about the next thing since you want to answer. He had a gun. He ever shot a white person? He ever did anything harm to a white person?
If he did, why would he tell you, stupid? Why would he admit to a crime he had already been put in prison for a decade? Do you see how stupid? Do you all hear how stupid this is? Hey, Malcolm, go ahead and admit to a crime so they can come lock you up again. This is the master strategist that's supposed to be here.
He walked around with a
Okay. You're not going to talk while the host is talking. But by the way, y'all understand something here. When folks got lead pipes up there in New Jersey, did you ever shoot a white person? Why would Malcolm say something like that? 1960. That's right. I shot 3 white men. Oh, really? So they can go, even if it's not true, we're going to go pin something on you. This is the master strategist here, by the way. This is the master strategist here. And what he is proof that, when your mama was out there in them streets and hitting the lead pipe, this is what they come up with. Can you imagine somebody being so psychotic that they are jealous of Malcolm X? Can you imagine that? Ask that guy what he's gotten done in his life. I'm not going to keep him on my phones. What has he accomplished? Nothing. What has he done? Nothing. Who follows him? No one. Who would listen? Absolutely nobody. He's a mush-mouth idiot. Let me educate you about Malcolm. Alex Haley said, excuse me, what about Malcolm's life? Did Malcolm, that seems to be a conflict there. Don't worry about that. Listen to me. I got a sentence here. I've had a sentence. Okay. Where's the white folk that he shot? Sir, that's major league stupid, isn't it? Hey, that's what I would do. Okay. First of all, no, you never would. That's the first thing. And second of all, if you did, that probably explains why you're fresh out the joint and talking stupid. The difference between you and Malcolm X is Malcolm X got smarter after prison and you have regressed. Caller America 310, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Jason, this is TJ out of Los Angeles.
TJ out of Los Angeles, what's on your mind?
So I love the broadcast tonight. Loved the broadcast last night too, and I just wanted to throw some value in there tonight, and in terms of being ready for when the opposition approaches you for debate, in the streets. And in terms of history, white supremacy is trying to fight black history at the same time preserving its own history, and it's almost like it's fighting the principle of history. So what I mean by that is they're trying to say that the past doesn't matter. You weren't a slave. I never owned slaves. So move forward. But if you go to college, you go to any profession, the first thing that you do in 101 is learn about the history and development of that field so that you can better understand that field. And so it's a losing battle that they'll never be able to achieve. So if you ask them, like, why do we talk about George Washington? He's in the past. They're going to say he's a forefather. It's important. But then at the same time, they're going to say that slavery and everything that happened at that point in time didn't matter. And so that kind of thought argument, I just thought that'd be valuable to add tonight because I appreciate everything you do.
Well, I would add one caveat there, and I've been mentioning this earlier this year. I mentioned it last year. Please understand, white supremacy is fully willing to throw even its history into the fires if that's what it requires to maintain white supremacy. As big of a triage as that might be, as extreme as that might be, and I've covered this here before, if there is a part of history that doesn't serve them, out it goes. If this is going to undermine their powers, if preserving this information is going to undermine their power, out it goes. Please remember, for the majority of the last century, they were 90% of the population. Well, of course, you had the luxury of being able to preserve everything. Your power was almost unassailable. Over the course of the last 150 years, we have revolted against that. That number has come down. So now that their power is no longer absolute and unassailable, if reality is against it, out you go. If remembering this event is inconvenient to our power and influence, out it goes. That can go. So I get what you're saying there, and I just want to give that one caveat to it. Please do not think that history is sacred. It's very important to them, but history has been their battleground now for 500 years. Now we've entered an era where if they feel like they're losing their grip on things, if preserving a historical fact is going to undermine that, out it goes. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 470. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Luke from Lithonia.
All right, Luke from Lithonia. What's on your mind?
I sure do appreciate your program, letting people hear exactly what Malcolm said himself. You know, we can't take everyone along on this journey. Sometimes, you know, trying to be fair with everybody, that's just not going to work when you trying to change things. And this whole thing of if you ever read or get yourself hold of white supremacist propaganda, they tell their own about the danger of their own woman turning on them. And this whole thing of trying to be fair with everyone, and this whole thing of equal rights, and things, if you need an army, you can't have a weak brother. You put a weak brother in right field. Okay, we can't take everybody, Jason. And what the mistake the enemy is making is when brothers got blemishes from prison and they can't get decent jobs, or you got more and more brothers that are homeless, that's when you get fuel for an army and a revolution. That's the mistake that they're making. See, these corny rappers and sissy athletes that are supposed to be the spokesperson for the black society. You got a Jay-Z, meanwhile he got a wife that's showing her behind. That's no leadership there. When it's just like you say, when we all start to be doing bad, that's when we'll get together and you'll have some power. Because when we're all suffering, that's when we'll have had enough. Love your program.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Let me get caller from area code 202. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, good evening, Jason. How you doing?
What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yes, my name is Dan. I'm calling from D.C.
Okay, your name is what?
Dan.
All right, Danny from D.C. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Long-time listener. First of all, let me just say thank you for all that you do. And, don't worry about that agent that called in earlier and trying to come up with threats. I'm a non-SBA, but I'm a B1. I ride it to the fullest. And I just wanted to say that Brother Malcolm taught us a lot. I'm originally from Angola, and growing up, I always looked up to Brother Malcolm. And I have to agree, I believe that had he lived a little bit longer, I think he could have done a lot more for people. And I think when he tried to persuade the African nations to back him up when he went to the United Nations, when he tried to sue the United States of America, I think that's where his death was imminent. But I just wanted to say that Brother Malcolm lives on, and there's a lot of us with Brother Malcolm's spirit. So I think, as the last caller just said, I think as a revolution, we don't need everybody. As the Honorable Marcus Garvey said, it's better sometimes to walk with a few than walk with a bunch of cowards and weak men. And I just wanted to say that I'm a rider to the fullest. I'm a former military, and during my time in the military, I always looked up for my brothers and sisters who are SBAs, and I just wanted to point that out. That there's a lot of us with that mindset. Be one, and thank you for all you do, Brother Jason.
Thank you very much. But let me find out, where are your people from?
Originally from Angola.
Okay, so y'all are all from Angola then. Okay. And how did you end up over here in the States?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
And how did you end up here in the States?
I migrated with some family. Just a quick interesting fact is that I always look at history, and I think every black person in the world should look into three nations for guidance. So, which is the United States, Haiti, and Angola, because in those three nations, we're able to defeat the white supremacists. And I say that because you guys did it over here, and the brothers in Haiti did the same. And we defeated the white supremacists about their apartheid regime, because they tried to invade Angola more than 3 times, and they were defeated. And Mandela was freed from prison, and Namibia became independent. So just from a revolutionary standpoint, I think every black man and woman should really look at how you did it over here, and the strategy, and also how the brothers did it in Haiti and in Angola.
Well, definitely, as far as Angola and Haiti, historically, they made a lot of headway. And for a while, it was good. I will say that. The issue that we've had is the longevity of it. If we could have maintained those things and whatnot, because they won the war but lost the peace. That's the sad footnote of this. They won the war but they lost the peace.
Yeah, and you know why, but Jason, it was because the white supremacy, they understand. So what they did was they put in power those stooges, those bootlicking that do cater their own interests, and that's the problem that we had, because their fighting spirit, it remains. People still willing to take on arms and go to war. We all grew up under that mindset, and unfortunately, we had a civil war. But we have that mindset. Unfortunately,
the mindset is the real thing about it, because here's the issue, brother. Fighting for yourself. Here's the difference. I mean, we're gonna have to be clear about something here. Here's the difference. Yeah. The Haitian Revolution, the Europeans were white supremacists. That's true. But were the Haitians fighting white supremacy? I would submit to you all that after all these decades, that's not really the way they saw it. And I would submit to you the same thing for Angola. Yeah, the folks they were fighting saw this as a racial conflict. But the folks who were fighting in Haiti and Angola, they saw it as a survival conflict. But its greater narrative and its greater construct of white supremacy, I think the results speak for themselves. Unfortunately, I don't think that they ultimately saw it as that, which is how we have the results we got now.
Well, maybe I would just disagree in part, because, for example, in Angola, the apartheid regime, the white supremacy regime, they tried to invade Angola twice. So the first time they failed, the second time they were defeated. And actually, I had family members that fought in those wars, And so, for the first time, I would say yes, It was just maybe something that was they were just fighting for survival. But for the second time in 1988, 89, the Battle of Quito Carnavale, that was real. That was what.
Yeah, brother. I mean, what I'm saying is that I'm sure you got it, but what I'm saying is when you take a look at the country as a whole, we can't cherry pick individuals. When you take a look at the country as a group today, you see you see a bastion of African black empowerment. That's what you see.
No,
There's my whole thing. I'm not diminishing the valor of it. I'm not diminishing, the bravery and the courage of it, and I'm not diminishing their accomplishment of it. When folks talk about Ethiopia, for example, I'm not diminishing their valor and their courage and their accomplishment. What I'm saying though is that we can't overlook the final results. My thing is because what I'm saying is that it's not enough to just have this tremendous vault into the air. Did you stick the landing? Because if you have this tremendous somersault in the air and it's wonderful and it's beautiful and you're catching air and the waves, they're spinning around, and then when you're coming back down, your face plant. It's just like, oh, that kind of, it's did you stick the landing? And I'm saying this not because I'm trying to denigrate them, but because I'm saying, hey, you can't rest on your laurels about this. Sticking the landing is important. Where all these places messed up at. All of them, ALL, 100%, all of them screwed up when it was time to reach out to us. The richest, most powerful, most influential group of black folk on the planet. And they flatly refused to call in the only reinforcements who could have made that happen. Because when you talk about Angola and South Africa and Ethiopia and Rwanda for that matter, you don't get that straightened out until we start getting concerned. When we start getting concerned, when we start putting our strength to it, that's when things change and stay changed. And everybody's trying to figure out how to take on this white supremacist beast, and none of them have any experience at doing it. And so the results don't stick.
Yes, I have to agree with you on that. I believe there was a failure in planning the end goal. That's the issue that I see, and I actually, Brother Malcolm shouted out to Angola, in one of his speeches that I've watched. He shouted out to Angola because people were putting work there, and I myself, I just so happen to come from a lineage of warriors, former people that fought against the Portuguese and whatnot.
Right, and there's the key element right there, because this is another thing we have got to discuss here, and this can be a painful thing, particularly among our folk from the diaspora who come to America. One of the things we look out for, there's a reason why we keep bringing up this idea of, by the way, why did you run? Because nobody asked that question. What I'm saying is riders don't run. Riders stand. So when we got somebody who they come from place about it was a war zone, I'm like, okay, how did you survive? Well, I got the hell up and ran. And so the first thing we say is, oh, that's a character trait, because when it's time to get down, are you going to be somebody who gets down, or are they going to be somebody who runs? So if you come from a lineage and you have some folks who fought, your perspective fundamentally about dealing with it, I'll say this diplomatically, your perspective is probably not indicative of the society as a whole, unfortunately. Your perspective may not be indicative, or at least it hasn't been lasting. I'll let you have the last word.
Well, yes. Well, let me say this. I didn't run. Actually, my family, was being persecuted at the time, and so he had to basically get the hell out of there, But
be careful there. That's a thin line right there. Be careful.
Yeah, but here's what I would say. It definitely there were even. There was we didn't
run. We just got up and got out. So I'm just saying, it's a thin line. It's a thin line there. We didn't run. We just got up and got out. So just remember, there's a thin line there.
Because here's the thing, right, Jason. Here's the thing. I'm ready for anything. I don't mind going there. But the problem that we face today in countries like Angola today is that the white supremacy they have actually installed a regime that does not allow.
No. That's not it. Brother, if y'all are going to get things straight, and I'm doing this as a teaching moment, take it from those of us of the foundation who taught y'all how to do this, and you get things done when you listen to us. The problem is not, of course, the white supremacist engineering things, yeah, that's an issue. But do you understand the problem isn't that power came from the top down, power comes from the soil up. You had to leave because you ain't got no support among the people. It's not about the government. Well, they install puppets in the government. Yeah, they install puppets in the government over here too. And we're a minority of the population. Y'all were the overwhelming majority. We're the overwhelming minority of the population. We still got things done. You know why? Because we weren't looking at the top. We were looking at the man next to us and the woman next to us, and we were holding them to that. We had support over here among the people, not the government. The government has never supported us. You all are not going to be able to make any progress until you start acknowledging what the real issue is. It might be difficult pill to swallow. It might be tough, but you got to swallow it and say, yeah, we had to leave because those of us who were riders, we had to leave because we ain't got no support here. We don't have any support from the people. My folks on the street, we didn't have no support with them.
Those are facts. You're saying, but Jason, those are facts, and it's been if you look at the continent in general, that has been the problem. There's real and also what I've noticed is the real riders, they don't get the opportunity to actually come over here. So a lot of the people that are allowed to leave,
the folks who leave are the coons. That's our whole thing about it. The reason why we made the name Tethers is because these were not folk who came to America and started cooning. Oh, the white folk told us to go along to get along. No, they chose you and they selected to allow you to come over because you were cooning over there. The revolutionaries are the ones they try to keep out. The riders are the ones they try to keep out. They're already marked as troublemakers back where they come from. The doors over here are open for the coons. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Let me go ahead and get down here. Let me get caller from area code 618. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. This is Miriam R. You required me to call and I'm calling in.
Hello, Miriam. Now, I wanted to have a word with you here about something I read in the chat room. So I was just curious to find out the context, ma'am.
Sure.
Please.
By all means. What is it exactly you were wondering about that I stated in the chat?
That's never good, Miriam. That's never good. Come on now. Let's not do that. Come on.
Oh.
Come on.
Okay, I just did the eyeballs and I said, could he be a tether? And then I say, oh, okay. And then someone else made a funny text.
Oh, okay.
And I said, yeah. Pretty much he's okay at the end of my statement.
There you go. There you go. We can just go ahead and be honest about that right there. Let me be clear about something here also. And I have a free speech zone about things here. And of course, you all are among family, so I want you to be clear about that. This is a teaching moment. I am not. I am absolutely not now, nor will I ever be someone who has an issue with you all being proactive and hypervigilant. That will never be a problem, nor will that ever be considered a negative. Not at all. Not at all.
Indeed.
Especially in the perilous times in which we live and the engineered social system that we have, I am absolutely not going to disarm you all. Not 1 inch. We got into this situation specifically because we were not demanding to see paperwork. We got into this situation specifically because we were not demanding that people tell us where they're from and what the deal is. We got into this situation because of that, so I am absolutely not going to do anything that undermines that. The reason I had you call in, however, is I want y'all to understand one more thing, though. First of all, I heard what he said from the beginning. And what I'm saying is that I need you all to start listening with a discerning ear first. That is very, very crucial to do. Very, very crucial. My concern is that if you all are listening with a biased ear, then you're going to be missing who we're looking for. We're filtering people. Somebody having an accent does not automatically, we shouldn't automatically jump to that, because what I'm saying is I need folk who got their eyes and ears open. We need folks who have their eyes and ears open. In his case, for example, he seems to be pretty much on the right track about things. There are some concepts, of course, he needs to be educated about because he doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Yes.
And that's why when I was talking to him and stuff, and I said, we got to watch out for folks who run. Now, I wasn't referring to him specifically, but he was like, yeah, well, we didn't flee. I mean, we had to get up out of there. I'm like, okay, dude, you're trying too hard to defend yourself. You're trying too hard now. I'm not impugning your motives, but I'm like to say, hey, we hightailed it out of there. Okay, first, and you see that's I'm having a teaching moment with him like I was having one with you now. The reason why I'm explaining that is because I wanted him to understand he can't fix the problem if he doesn't understand the problem. And the problem is, dude, you had to leave because with other folks, they leaving because they cooning. Your folks had to leave because y'all didn't have any support. So it can be a very hard thing for you to say, I'm from Angola and I'm trying not to, crap all over the place I come from. So you got that conflict there, you see? They from Angola. He's never going to stop being from Angola. That's what it is. Okay, we respect it. That's okay, it is what it is. But if he's going to make progress, he's got to be honest about the situation on the ground. And being honest about the situation on the ground is not dishonoring where you come from. It's actually honoring it. Because if the place is sick, the highest honor is to get it back nursed to health. And you can't do that if you will not be honest about what the real condition is, where you come from. You're trying to act like everything's okay in Angola and it's just a few problems. No. Everything's upside down in Angola and there's a few things that ain't. And y'all had to have a strategic fallback because you don't have support among the population. You don't have support among the people. And if you're willing to get your arms around that and accept that as being the full scope of the problem, now you can actually deal with it, even though it's an overwhelming problem. But you can't fix a problem until you're actually willing to admit what it is. And that can be hard to do. That can be ultra hard to do. It's like, damn, I got to write off the whole country. You don't have to write it off. You have to be honest about what the country is so we can fix it. Because you sitting here telling me everything's all right, man, that ain't going to fix nothing. Because that is not all right. You got an issue, dude. Red alert across the board. Now we can work with you to get that thing straightened out because we're being honest about what it actually is. We're being honest about that. So in this case here, that's important to me. The reason why I want you to call it because I want that to be important. I don't want a situation where we're not listening first. That's very, very important for us to do. And understand, there's a reason why I'm handling this the way I am with you. I do not want you to stop being hyper vigilant. That's not what I want you to do. So what I'm saying right now is in no means intended to do that. What I'm saying here is I want folks like Malcolm was trying to say there, I want y'all to stop trying to drag everything out in the streets necessarily and listen first. Because here's my thing. My issue isn't you calling out Tether. That's perfectly fine. My issue is you were wondering. Do you see what I mean?
I do.
My issue, and you were not the only one. It's like the other folks there, if they don't get on the line here, there'll be an issue with that there too. But and to be, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what to be me means. I'm not really sure. Maybe to be me can clarify what they mean there. So to be me, why don't you take a moment here in the chat room to clarify exactly what you mean by that? But my whole point here is I want y'all to understand. Everybody, you're right to be hyper vigilant, but if you're questioning, if you're not sure, folks, do not throw that term around willy-nilly. I know it's very tempting. I know that you have suffered tremendous insults from ungrateful, undeserving individuals and groups. I know this. I'm sitting right here every week. I host a program about it. I get that. But I want y'all to understand, do not throw that term around frivolously. That word means something. Those terms mean something. If we use them, we have to understand, we have to be sure that we've used them correctly in their right context with the right people. So if I would make an adjustment, if I can make an adjustment or a suggestion about that, it is, before y'all say those things, don't go speculating, because folks are watching. Don't go speculating. We have to be precise. If they really are, they're going to show themselves. Have no doubt about it. If they really, really are, they're going to show themselves and you're going to recognize it. Because here's the other thing about us. We want to lead by showing people that we're the special forces. We're the elite, which means that we're precise.
Indeed.
That means we're smarter than everybody else. Yeah, I said it. I sure did say that. We're smarter than everybody else. We're more precise than everybody else. We're more seasoned than everybody else. We're not sitting up here barking up the wrong trees. We're the ones who get it right. So the only addendum I would make to what you said there is I would hope that I've prevailed on you, that you are right to be hypervigilant and you are to continue to be hypervigilant. I would just like to ask you to be more precise.
Indeed, and I thank you for that correction. I'm not above that, because being FBA freedmen, if we can't check each other and do it with grace and dignity, then who are we?
Well, I want you to know you're powerful. I want you to know that you're powerful. This is the thing right here that's always gotten me about this. You all, folks, especially those of you who have good motives, you all don't recognize how powerful you are. I know. You're living your life. You look at your driver's license. You don't see a superhero. I get it. I understand it. You go out to your cars like, Jason, I drive a Toyota Corolla. This is not the Batmobile. What are you talking about? I understand that, but you don't understand how powerful you really are. You don't. Most of you don't. Most of you don't understand how much weight your word carries. Most of you don't get it. You actually have a connection to the land, to the soil, to the lineage. That, baby, you can't buy that. You can't $5 Indian your way into that. You can talk about your people and their connection to this. So when you speak, you have, the bottom line is, whether they like it or don't, you all have a legitimacy that these other folks don't have. And it can't be purchased, bought, borrowed, bribed. Y'all got something legit. And what I'm saying is that's why when we say that, no, we made the world's premier eminent music art forms. We did that. That carries weight, because when you start getting into debates, we all know how it's going to end. They can argue if they want to. We all know how that debate's going to end. It's going to end badly for anybody questioning us. It ain't in question. The deeper you dig, the more foundational you get. That's the problem.
Yes, sir.
And what I'm saying is that gives... I don't want to use the word privilege, because I know I would be trying to walk that back hence, because there'll be a bunch of white folk who call me. See, there is black privilege. See, no reparations for you. So that's why I'm not going to use it. You ain't going to catch me with that one. So I'm not going to say you have the privilege, but I am going to say that you certainly do have the credentials, and your credentials are heavy. Please understand, you have a Malcolm X. They don't. You have a Huey Newton.
Indeed.
They don't. And when you say we got results, you can show your work, and everybody feels that. So that's what I'm saying. Remain hyper vigilant, but I would only ask that one thing there, only because you're powerful. I know you don't feel like, that's why folks can be a little bit frivolous, but I admonish you all. Sister, you're powerful. When you speak, I'm telling you, people are listening. It carries weight. I know you don't feel like, you're like, Jason, I'm just little old me Miriam. You don't understand.
No, I do understand, and you are so correct about that. And I shall, make note and move with more discernment.
And I appreciate you for that.
Indeed. Thank you, brother. Be one.
Be one as always, dear sister. I want y'all all to understand that your words have power. You all have weight. I don't say that we are the trendsetter and the leader because it sounds like a cool slogan. I'm saying it because it is what it is. It is what it is. When we show up, the only thing everybody else can do is bow down and salute. That's it. Which is kind of hard to do when you do it. You can salute and then bow down, and you can bow down, stand back up and salute, whichever one you choose. But I mean, that's it. And what I'm saying is that that's the office we hold in. That's the position that we're in. But with power comes responsibility. That's what I'm telling you all. If you wish to claim that you are empowered, very well, understood. With that power comes responsibility. So the words that we speak, including calling somebody racist, calling somebody white supremacist, you don't just throw that around willy-nilly. You don't do that. When I have my premieres for my films, we're supposed to be intelligent black society. You ain't got to sit up here and stare all around the damn room if some white folks show up. You know they ain't gonna make it to the end of the damn movie, no way. What? I'm just saying, but don't make them feel self-conscious. If they show up, okay, we've seen white folk before. Maybe you'll make it to the end of the movie. Maybe you won't. I don't know what you thought race war meant, but okay. And that's cool. Because y'all have told me about it. Hell, and when I saw it, y'all have told me about that. Y'all were at my films and there was the old white couple comes in. There's always at least one. I don't know if they're with the CIA or who the hell they with. There's always one who shows up. There's always one who shows up and they get out there and they're sitting there about 20 minutes. Then they see what this film right here is. Oh, no. Black folk made this. It's like, oh, hell. Let's hurry up and go. And y'all start laughing when the white couple gets up and leaves. I know about it. It's like, okay, but be respectful. Don't start mocking them or giving no mean eye when they come in. They just like everybody. They bought a ticket just like you did. It's cool. You all just know the director and the maker of the film better than they do. That's the only difference. You know me better than them. That's the only difference. Other than that, it's like, okay, it's cool. We know how it's going to go down. This ain't our first world tour. And it's all right. They say Jason knows this is going to happen. Yes, Jason knows Jason knows exactly what's going to happen. Sure he does. He's been doing this for a decade. Of course he knows what's going to happen. All right. Represent. They might be fragile, okay? They might not necessarily be confirmed white supremacists. They might be fragile. It's like, oh, wait a minute. What do we get into? So we're not ready to have this conversation yet, even though they need to. It's like, okay, we got some fragile ones over there. Y'all is sensitive. You really need to be sticking around is what you need to be because you're going to have to deal with this one way or another. Quite frankly. You're going to have to deal with this no matter what happens. I would suggest you stick around, but you do have the freedom to leave. You're free to leave, but just understand you can't escape. So I would recommend you stick around. But in any case, folks, our words carry power. I know you're used to being powerless so long that once you got power, you don't realize you have it. But I'm here to tell you, you got power. When you speak, it means something. And when we speak as a group, it means something. You have a badge that you're carrying around with you. You have a credential that you're carrying around with you. That you're one of the descendants. So when you speak on other people, understand you've got the power to legitimize them and you've got the power to delegitimize them. And I want us all to take that power deadly seriously. That when we use these words and we use these terms, understand we're drawing a line in the sand. And I know y'all are battle tested. Y'all are war ready. I get it. There's a bunch of y'all, you're chomping at the bit. It's like, man, look, I'm ready to start tearing it up. I get it. I understand it. And there's a time and a place for that too. Let me be very clear. There's a time and a place for that. Not going to talk about it online. There's a time and a place for that. But use your powers carefully. First of all, recognize you got it. Second of all, use it carefully. Use it carefully, because we have the ability to galvanize the rest who are with us. You also have the ability to discourage them. Now, I don't want folks who are sincere to be discouraged. If we're going to use those terms, we need to make sure we're using them accurately. Let me get caller from area code 347. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
John Man, Manhattan, New York.
Okay, John Man in Manhattan. What's on your mind?
Yeah, peace and blessings. Jason Black. As of always, your broadcast is masterfully, you're a masterful teacher and doer. And of course, we know El Hajj Malik El Shabazz was also a masterful teacher and doer. Basically, I went to Harlem. Because every year on his birthday, they go to his gravesite, and also at the gravesite, Ferncliff Cemetery, Dr. Khalid Muhammad and some other notable brothers and sisters are also buried there. Anyhow, I've been to the gravesite about 13 times. I'm over 60. First, my father knew Malcolm. I met Malcolm only one time. Later on, when I was in my 30s, I ended up being one of the members of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, which was founded by Herman Ferguson. May he rest in power. And if you don't know who Herman Ferguson was, basically he was the assistant principal that Malcolm almost talked about when he was coming out of the civil court, because of the fact that Nation of Islam basically had the ownership of the house, and they were trying to evict Malcolm and his family, of course. I ended up meeting Betty Shabazz about 3 times. Okay, let me get to this point. The flyer reads, Malcolm X, of course we know he would have been 99 if he had lived. Black Panthers, Huey Newton even said from his own mouth that they were the sons of Malcolm. Basically, we know that Dr. Khalid experienced similar things that Malcolm experienced. And in many ways, he tried to extend the type of things that Malcolm would want. During some of the meetings of the Malcolm
Okay,
X
brother. Well,
Committee,
we have a lot of folk on the line here, so can you give us the Reader's Digest version?
Okay, I appreciate you for that. Please comment on this. Okay, at the rally and everything, after everyone, came back and everything like that, as usual, they went to the stores, make sure that they shut down, that they respected the fact that today was Malcolm X's birthday. It was about 8, 9 RBG, red, black, and green flags, right? And 3 Palestine flags. How do you feel about that?
Okay, I don't even know what you're referring to, sir. You said when they came back from the rally, so you're having a stream of consciousness here. You've left some things out. So they came back from the rally. So we went from talking about Malcolm to they came back from the rally. So I'm not really sure what you're referring to.
Okay. Basically, every year for Malcolm X's birthday, there's a rally. Okay, there's always a trip where everyone who are supporters of Malcolm, who are inspired by Malcolm's legacy and everything like that. And there's 2 groups. I'm not going to name the groups unless you want me to. Basically, whoever shows up will get on the bus, and everyone will make a kind of like a pilgrimage to the cemetery to pay respects to Malcolm. This is something that has been done.
Okay, brother. Well, here's the thing here. The folks who were carrying the Palestinian flags, were they Palestinians? Were they Muslims?
What I'm saying is that normally it would just be red, black, and green flags. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get across to you. Okay, in this particular case, yes, it appeared that there were some Palestinians or Muslims who were there, and they were part of the procession. I'm talking about after they came back.
Well, brother. Like I say, we're going on wandering here for a while. I'm not really sure what direction to take this in here,
Okay,
because
I can
we're throwing a lot
respect that. I
of
can
facts
respect
here.
that. I
But
can
look,
respect
the
that.
bottom line is,
I just want to share
the
that
bottom
with
line
you.
is that the bottom line is, for those of us who don't live in the New York area, that might be different. Look, I don't know who organized it, because the real thing is about, if somebody organized it, did they have control or authority to say you can't bring those flags or you shouldn't bring them? You know, if they're trying to mark themselves as Palestinians in solidarity, calm down. I don't know who they are. Not sure where they came from. I don't know if they were carrying flags to try to demonstrate that their being Palestinian is in harmony and is in agreement with Malcolm X because he was Muslim. I'm not sure what their intention was to show that they were in unison with him. I'm not sure what their intent was. So without me being able to know that there's where the issue comes from. So if they're having a Palestinian flag to represent Palestine, that's one thing. If they're having a Palestinian flag to represent we're Palestinian, but we're trying to say we're Muslim, because I know there is actually a Muslim flag, believe it or not. But if they're trying to say it for that, I don't know. Now, if they're just trying to be Palestinian and taking it over, I don't know. If these are black folk, they're kind of off code. Other than that, I would need to know what their intent was.
It was organized by December 12th.
Okay.
December 12th movement. Okay.
I would want to find out what their intent was.
Okay.
So if I knew what their intent was, and that does not mean that I still approve of it, by the way. That doesn't mean that either, because I'm like, okay, because Malcolm wasn't Palestinian. So once again, if you're going to have look, here's the bottom line. If you're going to have a march or whatever, if it's not organized, then folks with their own agendas may show up. And your job then becomes to, the job then becomes whoever's organized it, assuming they're legitimate, because they might be somebody that Malcolm wouldn't have fooled with. So, like I say, those are questions that I would need to have answered. It'd be different if Betty Shabazz organized it, or if Attila or Kabila organized it. It would be different if that were the case. If this is just, hey, we're some Malcolm X fans or devotees and anybody can organize it or whatever, and this isn't really sanctioned by the family or anything, we're just doing this on our own, then, I mean, it becomes a free-for-all then. So what can I say? Palestinians.
Well, this was something that has been done for 34 years.
Right, is it somebody who is in charge of it? Because when it's the King family, you got to talk to the King kids. So was this somebody from Malcolm's family in charge of this, or is this just somebody who they authorized themselves?
Okay, basically in the past, yes, representatives of
okay,
the
brother.
family
Okay, here's the problem here, fellas. I know it's a New York thing. They like to babble, brother. I asked you a straightforward question. The people organizing it this year, and then I got to move on. The folks organizing it this year, are they from Malcolm X's family, or are these just some folks who organized it on their own, sir?
They connected to it. I'll just keep it short like that.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving us a call. And like I say here, folks, I tried to indulge it there for a minute, but look, I mean, he doesn't even know what he's talking about there. So let me move on along here. But yeah, folks, if you don't properly organize these things, anybody can just show up, and then it's going to attack your sensibilities if you see that. So it is what it is. Caller from area code 929, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Out of the frying pan into the CPAP machine. I hope that woke him up. Luckily for him, it's Malcolm's birthday, so I'm gonna try to I'm going to try to keep the usual black Ayatollah wilding out to a minimum today. I'm going to try to do that, y'all. You probably realize, wow, Jason's really reserved tonight. This isn't the usual Jason that we meet. I'm trying my best to keep it reserved right now. I really, really am. So, yeah. But, yeah, if you are a nurse in the, whatever area, I forget the 929, if you're a nurse in that area there, and one of your patients has not been taking his breathing treatments and he hadn't been taking his narcolepsy medication. So, yeah, buddy. All right. Well, they say, boy, they tested me tonight. One after another, they tested me tonight. Call of Miracle 516. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
They test me tonight.
Oh, Lord. All right.
One after another, they test me tonight.
They're not even watching on their telephone here.
Stay in the bed.
All right, y'all. 3 times in a row. We're not doing very well tonight. If this keeps up, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Caller from area code 914. Are you narcoleptic, distracted, or otherwise not sitting by your phone?
Nah, Jason, I wanted to say I'm Travis from Mount Vernon.
What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Travis from Mount Vernon, Westchester County.
I'm about to say, maybe northern New York here can do us a little bit better. All right, what's on your mind?
Nah, I wanted to say earlier, what you saying earlier from the dude from Angola, and he was saying that they picked certain people to come over. And I was saying that in the 70s and 80s in Jamaica, there was a certain group of people who immigrated during, I think it was Manley was the president at the time, Michael Manley. And when he was putting his policies in place in Jamaica, I guess you can say the buffer class, they were the first ones to start to leave the island in the 70s and 80s. But particularly Chinese Jamaicans, Indian Jamaicans, some white Jamaicans, they were the first ones to, I guess you can say, get on a plane and leave and come to America.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not inside the government, or we got black folk in the government. They're not really saying as much as we would need them to, but you got everything from the CIA to the State Department that has organized immigration policy in America. And it's no surprise that as soon as they started passing civil rights for us, they immediately started amending the immigration laws, which is exactly what they did post antebellum slavery. So every time that they loosen the noose on us, it's like, okay, weaponize immigrants. Okay, if the black folk are going to have more mobility, weaponize that non-foundational population. Weaponize them. And so now you're seeing that continue. And what we've started to notice is, by the way, we couldn't help but notice that a disproportionate number of the folks that they allow over here, these folks were cooning back where they came from. They had anti-descendant sentiments before they ever got here. And lo and behold, the State Department and everybody else has allowed them a beeline to get over here. That's not accidental when you see that happening over and over and over and over again. That's not accidental. So now we can, as far as I'm concerned, we can legitimately assume this is government policy. They're not choosing folks at random, and people ain't getting through at random. They're choosing, okay, you're anti them. Oh, you're pro us. All right, you ain't solid. Oh, you're going to run. And in many cases, we already know this. Like, if they've gone through the legal immigration process, the governments where they come from got to sign off on them. Now, there's the other thing. If they go through the legal immigration process, their governments back where they came from got to sign off on them, which means the State Department here lets them know, by the way, there's a certain type of person we don't want coming over here. And pro-black is what we don't want coming over here.
Yeah, I also want to say is a lot of the Jamaican gangs, they're trained by the CIA. That's why you notice, like, a lot of the posses, shower posses, they move like a military structure, because they were trained by the American government. And that's why you see them operate different from other, I guess you'd say, gangs. They operate like military.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I say, this stuff is not accidental. The only disadvantage that we have is we don't live in those places, so we don't know the get down of the groups and whatnot before they come over here. But so we're a little blind in that regard, but we can see the results. We see what they're allowing over here, and we see it's consistent in that regard. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. In the chat room, Monica, are you trying to submit your side chick application? What's going on over here? All right, calm down, ma'am. It's I don't know what she's trying to do, but this is the wrong program. She's thinking about somewhere else. Let me get caller here, code 708. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, this is Cheryl. I'm from Homewood, Illinois.
All right, Cheryl from Homewood, Illinois. What's on your mind?
I believe I was supposed to call in. I was in reference to a comment I made about a statement that you made yesterday.
About a statement that I made yesterday. Okay, and what statement is that?
Well, a gentleman who was 72, he said he was 72, he called in, and he was talking about, well, it just seemed like after you spoke to him, in general, you just went off on the elderly population among us again, and
what did I say that was wrong? Okay, let me try this a different way. What did I say that was false?
It seemed like he seemed like a very genuine person. He seemed to me anyway. I mean, I don't know him or anything, but he sounded genuine, and like he was really very much appreciative of the work that you do, as am I. And then after he just expressed that sentiment, and then it seemed like after the conversation, after you finished talking to him, after you finished your statement, you started basically doing what you have a tendency at times to do, and that is to place the elders among us into one category.
Okay, well,
basically.
I don't think that's accurate either, but I want to make sure about something here, because the statement that you made, and y'all realize the same thing, folks. When you call folks to account, they never stand by what they actually said. They make up something different. I don't think I said anything directly to who's the 72-year-old that I talked to yesterday?
I don't recall what he said his name was. But
okay, now was that during a live program, or are you talking about a video that was recorded?
Yeah, it was yesterday live.
Okay, and what exactly did this 72-year-old gentleman say? Because I remember one guy. There was one guy that I talked to who was that age, and I didn't say anything that was critical of him. So you can't be you can't be referring to anything I said to him. You must be referring to something that I said later that was in no way connected to him. And yet you made a comment in the chat room claiming that it was.
Well, no, I didn't say it was. I felt like I just didn't understand why you couldn't have just gone ahead and just thanked him for his comment and let it go at that, as opposed to going off again on people who are in his age range.
Okay, what did I say that was false? I'm waiting to hear the part about what I said. If you're going to take offense at something, just consider what type of character you have. Okay, slow down. Ma'am, the man is hosting his program. If you're going to make a comment in the chat room like you did, then at the very least, you need to start examining your character if you're going to raise that as a negative. So I'm asking, if you're raising it as a negative, what was it that was said that was false? Because if you got a problem with the truth, we have a different character flaw to deal with. So what was it that I said that was false? Just tell me what I said that was false. Just give me that.
I don't. In that particular, it seems like the elderly among us. It just seemed like you have a tendency to have just in general a negative opinion of them, of the seniors among us. And I realize that a lot of seniors are they really are, as you said, looking for just a quiet place to pass away, as you said. That there's a lot of truth in that, but there are quite a few elders who absolutely agree with what you're saying, and they're behind you 100%. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And here's the issue. Here's the thing I want to be clear about here. When it comes to me talking about tethers, and I've got a few in particular, that they listen to me and stuff like that. And sometimes they get in their feelings when we use that kind of language. One in particular is a bit of a screwball. I like her, but she's a bit of a screwball. But I like her anyway. But they tend to get sensitive about that. But here's the thing. My responsibility in hosting a forum like this, because I'm not a leader, but my responsibility in hosting a forum like this is that we have to be brutally honest. The only thing I have to do is make sure I'm not lying or saying a falsehood. Now, if I'm saying something that is factually accurate in its proper context, that is not being weaponized in a way of trying to harm somebody, then we have a responsibility to look at that. If I have looked at what's happened to us as a people and I've identified a specific area where there were individuals who weren't on their game, weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, we can't sit up here and say, oh, well, we're not going to talk about that because we need to spare our priority needs to be sparing their feelings. Now, there's where we've lost the plot as a people when our priority is no longer survival. Our priority is, oh, don't offend those folks over there, calling them out on their garbage. No, you can't correct somebody if you don't call them out on it.
I believe in calling people out when they're in the wrong, and I agree when you say that our survival is at stake here, and that's why I also said that there are a lot of young people. A lot of our young people leave a lot to be desired these days.
Okay, but the problem is you have no control over that. Because here's my issue. Well, here's my issue. How old are you?
Well, do we have any control over any of it?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Actually, actually we do. And I'm going to get to that. But first, how old are you, Cheryl?
I'm 62.
Okay. So your peers in that age group, you've had 4.5 decades. Those are the folks that you had the most influence over. That's the generation you're supposed to be most concerned about because you've had the most time with them. The quote, young people, they weren't even alive when you had the most experience and the most influence. They weren't even alive. So what you just did there is deflection. Once again, that's a dodging accountability mechanism. And this is why your generation couldn't get it together, because when it was time to become introspective, y'all start trying to dodge accountability and deflect instead of saying, wait a minute, the buck stops here.
Do you know how old I was when, I told you I was 62.
I'm about to say, you just told me you were 62 years old. So yes, I have a pretty good idea of
62.
Yeah, got a pretty good idea where your hallmarks in life are.
What was I supposed to be doing, when Malcolm X was assassinated, I was 3 years old.
That's correct, ma'am, but that's correct.
I was 6 years old.
That's correct. What was I
supposed to be doing at 3 and 6?
But ma'am, that is correct. But by the time we get to the 80s, it's a different matter.
And what was I supposed to be doing then? By the time
the exact same thing that we're doing now.
Well, I was busy preparing for my own life.
There you go.
Graduating.
There you go.
Yes, that's right.
There it is.
That's right.
There it is.
Right. Not trying to save the world, trying to save myself.
There you go.
Because with no father, with a deceased father and a sick mother, I wasn't about to try. I was in no position to take on the world. I was too busy trying to take care of myself and my sick mom.
There it is.
And there you go. You're right.
There you go. There it is. And I am not going to practice the.
One thing I'd like to
I am not going to practice,
and
ma'am, I'm not going to practice the malfeasance of telling young people today to take into account the feelings of somebody who would respond like that. That's all.
Who was what?
I would not sit up here and do the betrayal of young people today to tell them to take into account the feelings of someone who would respond like that. That's the difference. I wouldn't do that. With all due respect, the way that response right there, that's the reason why I got to call it out in an uncompromising fashion. I've got to draw the line right where it is, because when folks start talking about they looking out for themselves when they are at the height of the prime of their health and prime of their youth, I don't want these young folk to follow that as an example, because we'll just end up where y'all did. And I don't want that.
And I don't want to end up, I'm glad I'm not the way a lot of these young people are nowadays. I mean, you realize that I look around at I go to family gatherings. I look and I see younger people there, and I see them there with their significant others of different races and ethnic backgrounds, and they are slowly whiting us out.
Okay, who was their example? Who was their example that they learned from, Cheryl?
It certainly was. My husband's black.
That's interesting, but you already have admitted But you've already admitted, and by the way, you've demonstrated in the brief time that we've met you that you're also incredibly selfish, that's your primary characteristic that people identify.
No.
Yeah.
I'm also the mother of a very sick child, sick daughter who was born with a heart condition, and she required a significant amount of care.
But that doesn't tell us about how you present to other people.
I don't know how I present to other people.
Yes, ma'am. Have you considered that you present to other people the way you have to us today, and we just met you?
How did I present?
You present as what you just said. I look out for me and I'm selfish. You look out for you and your kids. You look out for me and mine. That's how we just met you, and it's very obvious and clear to all of us that, she is as advertised.
I've done things that were to help others at times.
When it was to your convenience. Yeah, when it was to your convenience. Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Right.
And that's how you rationalize to yourself, I'm not as bad as these other folks.
Neglecting my family, neglecting my sick daughter, neglecting my sick mother. No.
So in other words, you didn't sacrifice. That's one of your core principles, is you don't sacrifice.
No, I don't neglect.
No, ma'am, you don't sacrifice.
My family.
You don't sacrifice.
No, I don't. No, I don't neglect my family.
Do you think that Malcolm X would have been accused of neglecting his children with all the work he did and all the time he had to spend away from them?
He had his wife at home.
Okay, ma'am, second try here. As the father in the home, do you think that people accused him of neglecting his daughters with the tremendous amount of time that he spent away from them?
He had a wife at home.
Okay, but there's no replacement for a father.
If I could finish my statement.
But ma'am, that's not answering the question.
He's the father. Any of his kids were disabled either.
Ma'am, but as the father in the home, there is no substitute for a father. So third time, do you think that Malcolm X as a father was accused of neglecting his daughters because of the tremendous amount of time he spent away from them?
I've never heard anybody make an accusation like that against
him.
And
by the way, listen to what you said. Well, they had a mother at home, as if having a mother is a replacement for a father. Take a look at that attitude. There's no substitute for a father. They have a mama. Okay, there's no substitute for that.
You act like they were there alone, and there was nobody there to care for them.
Their father wasn't there a lot of time.
He was still being. I'm sure he was there quite often, and he was there for his children. I'm sure he was there for.
He was there except for the times he wasn't.
He had a devoted wife.
He was there except for the times that he wasn't, and the reason for that was because he was willing to sacrifice that.
Mm-hmm. Well. That's a sacrifice that he made.
And by the way, you say you had a husband, and you say you have a husband, correct? You say you have a husband, correct?
We do what we can in
Okay,
this life.
you say you have a husband, correct?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. So just like Malcolm, you had somebody else at home there too. So you weren't carrying that by yourself.
No, I wasn't carrying it alone.
Yeah, there you go.
But it was a lot to carry.
Okay, but you had help carrying it. So.
And he had to, and my husband had to go out and earn a living.
Okay, well you had help. You had help carrying it.
Cared for our sick baby.
But you had help carrying it. So,
I don't think pardon me.
So you had help carrying it, yeah.
I had help, yes.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Help. I had the help that I was supposed to have.
Exactly.
When I wasn't raised to give birth alone. and raise kids alone. I wasn't raised that way.
Okay,
so that's one thing I give my parents credit
here
for.
is the lesson that the baby boomer generation.
But they don't do that these
Okay,
days. These young
ma'am.
people are not doing
Here
that
is
today.
the lesson that the baby boomer generation, if they want to know why they are the least respected group of people ever, it is because in order for you to be respected by the next generation, you got to show your paperwork of what you've sacrificed for them. Because respect is earned. It's not a gift that's just privileged and given to you at birth. And you ain't made no deposits.
That's true.
And you haven't made any
That's
deposits. True. So you can't talk on these young folk because you ain't deposited nothing.
Oh, I have.
Go find the young people to speak. Go find the young people you're not related to vouch for you.
Not only for my own kids, but there are things I've done for others as well.
But Cheryl,
So
you don't even talk like somebody who's done that. Now you're trying to fabricate. Oh, I've done for other folks. You talk like what you said at the beginning, that you look out for yourself. You're centered on yourself, and you look out for what's important to you, and you don't sacrifice anything for anybody else.
No, I look out for myself and my family, and then I do what I can for other people as I'm able.
Then you need to just stand on that part and just understand that you don't have a place to talk on these young people.
There's a concern. And one thing I do feel I would like to say, if I may, in reference to the young people.
You have no standing.
The dominant society, if I can say it, I would like to make a statement. My concern about the dominant society is, my concern about our young people is that the dominant society is constantly throwing all sorts of advertisements. If it's not printed media, then it's TV commercials, and then it's movies, and every which way they are always trying to make it seem as though you need to be with a white person in order to be happy.
Okay, well, ma'am, okay, you're worried about the wrong thing.
Like our young people are buying into that.
You're worried about the wrong. You're worried about the wrong thing, ma'am. You're worried about the wrong thing. You're worried about television, ma'am. Ma'am, calm yourself. Ma'am, calm yourself down. You are worried about the wrong thing. You are trying to criticize a group of people that you don't even have any credentials or any standing with. So you're worried about television when in reality, meanwhile, you're deflecting from the fact that, by the way, you ain't got no status. You have no status or standing among these young people, and you're trying to talk on them, and you have no standing. Why don't you fix your lack of standing and status, and then you can speak on their lives?
No, I just feel like they should. There are a lot of them who I know have other people who have. There are a lot of black men I know. There are some nice black women who like them.
Are they like? Are they like you?
Are they like me? Like me how? I don't understand what you mean.
Okay, if you can't answer that question, then you can't speak to their character or who they're available to. So, are they like you?
They want white people because they have been engineered as to.
Okay, the folks you just said are available for them. By the way, before you try to hold them up as options for people, are they like you?
And I don't know what you mean. They're like me. I mean, they seem to be nice people.
Okay, are they nice people like you?
They seem to be nice people. They don't have to be like me.
Okay, because
they don't necessarily have to be like me.
Well,
they don't have to have my personality.
Here's the issue.
They don't have to have my viewpoint on everything.
Here's the issue. If I'm talking to a congenitally selfish person, and that selfish person is telling me that they approve of somebody else, then I can only assume that other person you approve of is like you too. And that will make them undesirable. What I'm saying is the young folk that you trying to vouch for right now say that they're available. You said they're nice people, but I'm like, if you approve of them, they're most likely like you, and that might be the reason these other folks are avoiding them.
Well, I don't know exactly what I'm not really understanding the point you're trying to make there, but
yeah, you do. You do. You get it.
Mine,
yeah, you do.
That
you
mine,
get it.
I'm not vouching for other people's kids. I can only vouch for my own.
I know you do.
Mine.
I know you do.
And I know that mine know what's expected of
me, mine,
and
me, my.
and they are, and I'm proud. I am. I'm proud.
I am.
They don't seem like I don't think they're going. I don't think they're going to disappoint me.
I don't think me. I think that says I, me, my, I, me, won't disappoint me, I, my. I think that says it all. This has been a very illuminating phone call.
Well, yeah, all I'm saying is I hate to see our people, our young people going, more and more of them seemingly going in the direction of other non-black.
And I hate to see the old folk who haven't contributed anything thinking that they have any standing to try to tell folks to please you or your sensibilities when all you did was run folk in a ditch.
No, not please me, but to not just white out the race. 100 years from now, there won't hardly be any of us in America. Won't be a foundational black America.
Well, there will be plenty of us. There will be plenty. Hopefully there'll be fewer coons. Hopefully there'll be fewer coons, but there'll be plenty of us.
I hope that too. I hope that there will be. I hope there will be no coons, and I hope that.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. You've gone on long enough. She's already made enough of an ass of herself. To my mods, you can go ahead and unblock her if you want to, since it took her forever to call in. By the way, if you can find her information, because she took entirely too long to call in. But yeah, these old folks call up here and whatnot and ain't got no damn standing. I've been doing this now going on 20 years. I'm going on half a century old my damn self. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody from the age of 9 to the age of 99. And I got standing. And yes, I still remember the young lady that I talked to who her dad had her call up and say that she wants to be a realtor. And I told her, if you call me back, and she lives in Houston, and I told her, if you call me back in a year, then I'm going to get you together with somebody who can help you get to the next level, even at your tender young age. Yes, folks, I still am waiting on that phone call when she gets to a year out. When we get to a year out, I'm still waiting for her to call me. I ain't passed that off to nobody else. I got literally hundreds of people who've gotten their CDLs, their IT certificates, their skilled trades, and a number of other things. I ain't just made it about me. I've earned my stripes to be able to talk on them because I'm down in the trenches with them. I'm looking at their lives. I call them out on their bull crap, but I ain't calling them out trying to pretend I'm up on some pedestal looking down at them. I'm down in the soil with them and saying, hey, you ain't up to code. And there's always some old niggas sitting up here trying to argue to get some respect they haven't earned. You supposed to be calling us up with your damn resume. Malcolm had his. Malcolm had his resume. Huey had his resume. Johnny Cochran had his resume. And they wasn't talking about me, I, myself. I mean, she just told on herself the whole damn time on the phone. I, me, my. And y'all saw I called it from the very beginning. I'm like, yeah, you're very self-centered there. You ain't got no standing to speak on these young folk. You don't have any standing to speak on them. You're delusional, and I would never try to influence them to listen to you. I want them to listen to folk who gonna go on the battlefield and sacrifice with them and sacrifice for them. That's what I've been talking about this whole time tonight. I want folk who gonna get out there and bleed for them. Gonna do without with them. Conor McGregor once said, yes, I said Conor McGregor, don't share a dinner table with somebody you wouldn't starve with. You got to earn the right to criticize these young people. You think just because you old and gray, you get to criticize them? You got to earn that right. If you got young folk in your family who do not value the black males or the black female example they grew up with, y'all need to take a look at that and say, where did we fail? What is it that they saw about us that they don't like? And I just told you what they don't like. They saw how criminally selfish you are, and they said, yeah, I ain't trying to do that. Let me go in another direction. And then got the nerve to sit up here and say, well, here's my critique for them. You ain't got no standing to critique them. You have no standing, no credentials. You haven't stored up any respect. You haven't earned any position to criticize them. Who are you? Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you? You got to earn that. That's not something you get to tap dance around and sit up here and talk your way around. You have to earn that. If you're going to talk about the young folk here, you got to be out here and earn that. Everybody wants to sit here and talk about how wayward they are and this, that, and the other, like y'all was hitting out the damn park. There's the other thing right there. How the hell you going to talk about Gen Z like y'all was killing the game? You came up in the 80s. You were 20 years old in the 80s. Y'all throwing the crack epidemic, the bastard baby epidemic. By the way, these young kids today are having fewer bastard babies than you all were back then. There's the damn truth of it. They were having fewer bastard kids than they're having fewer bastard kids today than y'all. And quite frankly, all the other things too. Y'all talking, I can't have some old person calling me up acting like they was knocking out the damn park and they doing so great and so fine at it. We would have a solidified economic foundation if that was the damn case. No, you go back to the 80s, they tricked off the money, they smoked up the rocks with the money, bastard kids all over the damn place and whatnot, and the kids today are trying to put this mess back together as best they can with no example from you to follow. No, I'm never going to be down on these young folk like that. I've never been that way. In over 15 years of doing this, I was the guy who popularized telling the young folk, watch out for these old niggas. And she just showed you all again why I said that. I ain't doubling down. I'm not tripling down. I'm quadrupling down on it. I'm telling them to watch out for y'all. Y'all ain't got they back. When I said y'all walked off the field, that's what the hell I meant. It's about me. It's about what the car I'm driving, about me and mine. It's like, okay, just understand, you just forfeited any right to criticize them. You got no standing. None. Call America code 409. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, what's good, brother? It's LP calling from Port Arthur, Texas.
All right, LT from Port Arthur, what's on your mind?
I think big problem is a lot of people were sitting back and waiting on another Malcolm to show up instead of being the Malcolm that they should have been. A lot of people became cowards instead of being proactive. On a day like this, I think everybody should reflect on the man that Malcolm was, the lessons that he taught, and the example that he left for all of us. And I'll land my plane there, brother.
Thank you very much for giving us a call. Now, let me go ahead and address that. Folks, you know, I've talked about this before. After the end of antebellum slavery, after the end of chattel slavery, ideally what would have happened would have been that we would have had a black constitutional convention. You see, the advantage that, you know, the European settlers and the immigrants have over us is they had an agenda for coming here. They had an agenda for being here, and everybody had to be on code in order to do that. Everybody had to be on code to do that. In the chat room, 12 Brothers needs to call up. He's got 2 minutes. You have so much to say. You have 2 minutes here. So 12 Brothers got 2 minutes to be on the phone for us here. Enough in the chat room. Ideally, what would have happened here is that we would have had a constitutional convention. And we would have gotten together like the Europeans did and like the immigrants do when they come over here. And we would have solidified who we are as a people. And we would have set out who we're going to be. You know, like the Mormons did when they moved to Utah. I can go down the list of groups of people who've done that in this country. Ideally, when we left the plantations, that's what would have happened. But that didn't occur. We didn't get to do that. We weren't allowed to do that. And as a result, we kind of just been wandering out here and trying to cobble together, you know, an agenda after that. We've been trying to cobble together something. And as a result, It's been slapshod. We haven't had elected leaders really that we could count on in that regard. We haven't had elected leaders that we could count on in that regard. And because we haven't had that, you haven't had a solidified base there. And because of that, we've had to have leaders come from the soil. They've had to be activists, unelected leaders. We had to have unelected leaders. So that's how you end up with individuals who have to jump up and do it on their own. So if it were more organized or more formalized, it would be more cohesive. If it was formalized and organized, it would be more cohesive. So in a lot of cases, it seems like that with the civil rights generation. Yeah, you had some foolery going on with that there. But other than that, that's a different matter. Other than that, that's a different matter. In the chat room here, boy, I'm telling you, I got a drunk moderator tonight, so I'm gonna see if I can get her off of the drink here. Is this? Yeah, I got a drunk moderator tonight, so might have to put her in rehab. Caller from area code. Let me go ahead and get a caller from country code 447. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Brother Malcolm. Brother Jason.
All right, brother. What's on your mind?
Brother Jason, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
This is Brother Jeff.
Jeff out the UK.
This is rest in power, Brother Malcolm. Rest in power, Brother Jason. Our beloved Malcolm X, he was killed and he gave his life for us. A great elder who would have been, I think, 99 today if he had survived his murder. Brother Jeff from UK speaking. Great Malcolm X, a great elder, so all blacks globally. Rest in power to him. All the others, Malcolm X, Brother Martin also, Medic Evers, Fred Hampton, all the greats that died for us. Love, and we have our respect and our esteem. These great titans, these great leviathans of intellect, strength, integrity, decency, they'll never be forgotten. Never.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. It's Brother Jeff from the UK. Let me get caller from area code 415. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi.
Caller from area code 415 has been abducted. Caller from area code 901. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Elliot out of Memphis.
Okay, what's your name, sir? It sounds like you're working as a short order cook at the Waffle House. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Elliot from Memphis.
All right, Elliot from Memphis. What's on your mind?
So I've been meaning to call in on a broadcast when we're discussing these things, but I say about a couple of years ago, I was kicking it with this Arab chick, an Arab woman, and she's an immigration attorney. And a lot of the things we talk about on the Black Channel, especially that you talk about as far as government policies and, you know, just maneuvering things to a certain agenda, she has affirmed that. She's personally affirmed and she sees it every day. So I wanted to give you some more credibility to that claim that you were making.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, I want folks to understand there are people who want to work with us, yeah, but there's also there's more people who want to just use us. They don't have stroke in the dominant society, and they're just looking for a way to use us. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. He sounds like he's opening a rusty oven. Sounds like he's opening a rusty oven at the Pancake House. So it's just, we caught him in between making orders. Thanks for checking in with us anyway. Let me get caller from area code 973. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, Jason.
What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is John. I'm in Strasbourg.
Okay, I got Negroes calling me while they're working on their cars. Okay, sir, where are you calling from?
Okay, can you hear it? Okay. Strasbourg, PA.
Okay, Salisbury, Pennsylvania. What's on your mind?
I just want to ask a quick question. I don't hold you up. Do you think, would you consider Jewish Zionist white supremacists?
I don't make distinctions about their ethnicity, but if they are white, I don't sit up here and quibble over their religion or ethnicity. But certainly, those folks there have been a number of them who have exhibited anti-black tendencies. So certainly,
yes,
there certainly is a contingent that has done that, absolutely. And it's gone primarily unaddressed among their group. What's happened is, in a lot of cases here, and this started with the civil rights generation, but in a lot of cases, Jewish people saw that as a way to help themselves. The spearheading with us, spearheading our issues was a way of helping them so that the dominant white society would ease up on them a bit. Okay, but once they have no, okay, calm down. They've had little issue with helping, quote unquote, helping us as long as it converged with their interests. But when it comes to, when it's not something that's converging directly with their interests, we're kind of just left on our own, which is why you don't have a problem getting them to go pro bono for a regular discrimination case. Meanwhile, Ed Blum is out here going to the Supreme Court, and we don't really have a lot of backup from the Jewish legal community in that regard. That would mean a whole lot more than anything else. So those kind of things are indicators that I look at. I don't quibble over the labeling of they're Jewish, they're white, and they're practicing white supremacy. I don't feel better about white Latino white supremacy. And remember, this is an argument we had before. Remember, the Latinos were trying to tell us that, back with George Zimmerman, you're calling him white. He's not white, he's Latino. And we stayed banging on it. We never got off of it. No, he's white. So I don't feel better about it because they're white Latinos than I do if they're white Jewish. And I don't make a distinction. That's why we keep putting that label white. At the end of the day, it's white supremacy. The Zionist part of it, I don't live in Israel, so that's really I'm not really sure exactly what that would have to do with me necessarily. Although you should be aware when you're dealing with groups that may be harboring anti-black tendencies. Now, there's plenty of folk here in Israel who are not harboring anti-black tendencies, but the Israeli government has tended to do so. And the folks who've most wanted to spearhead that have tended to do so. My issue is I don't try to have breakout conversations of, okay, let's talk about this. We talk about these other folks. Well, what about this little group over here? And what I'm saying is you lost the plot when you start doing that. So if it's something that comes up naturally, that's one thing. Making a special point to, okay, and what about the Jews over here? If you're making a special point to do it, I'm like, when you do that, what you're now doing is letting everybody else go. Now we're taking the eye off of white supremacy and saying, well, let's stop talking about that and talk about Jews. Because remember, when we're talking to the Richard Spencers and the Jared Taylors, they have absolutely no problem telling us as black people, oh yeah, and what about the Jews? Well, wait a minute. Now, why are you and him saying the same thing? If Jared Taylor and Richard Spencer are saying, what about the Jews? And here you are, yeah, what about the Jews? But wait a minute now. Why would those guys be so eager for you to start talking about these other folk? How is that helping them? Oh, you're taking your eye off the ball of white supremacy.
Well, a lot of them take money from those Zionists, for example.
Okay, you don't have a way of
Donald Trump.
You don't have a way of quantifying that thing, and even to the extent that doesn't change the fact that they're white. So this intellectual fetish of Zionism, that doesn't change it. I mean, you can keep saying that phrase all you want to. How does that change their whiteness, sir? Because for you to say Zionist, then you would have to show that there's some non-white portion of Zionism. Is there a non-white portion of Zionism?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, so that's what I mean by as soon as you lose the plot, as soon as you start trying to get down, start micromanaging it and dissecting and, oh, look at these Zionists over here. Yeah, you can understand about them, but the issue with them is not that they're Zionists. The issue with them is being white supremacists.
That's true. That's facts.
So that intellectual fetish about Zionism is intended for folks to try to take their eyes off the ball. Now we're not talking about the Anglos, and we're not talking about the white Latinos, and we're not talking about the Arabs. Now we sit up here talking about a subsection of one group. In reality, is white.
You're right about that as far as Latinos, though, because prime example, Latinos have been signing themselves off as white on the census for years. That's actually increased over the years.
Right, and what I'm saying is that,
and
what I'm saying is that I don't break them out into separate groups. I gather them all together. You're up against a white supremacist system. So
basically what
I'm
you're
not.
saying is the religious aspect is a distinction without a difference.
The religious aspect is an intellectual fetish that might entertain somebody for a few moments to go into some of that detritus. People like watching documentaries. Okay, fine. I want the person to understand that you lost the plot. Now we're talking about a religion or an ethnicity when the issue isn't their religion and the issue is not their ethnicity. The issue is, are they white supremacists? There's the problem. Because
they're upholding
the idea.
The system.
Well, okay, here's the issue. The idea of talking about Zionism, somebody wants to go make a country for themselves in the middle of the Middle East. What the hell's that got to do with us? It doesn't mean anything more to me than hearing that the Russians want to make a country in the middle of Asia. Am I supposed to get upset because they have an idea of Vladimir Putin wants to maintain Russia in the middle of Asia? And maybe expand its borders some because that's the idea they have? Why is it we're talking about them and not him? And so I'm saying, why are we singling out this subsection of white folk over here and taking our eye off of everybody else? And here's the other thing. It's not as if we haven't already grouped them together. So for somebody to sit up here and divert the conversation to say, what about the Jews? It would be different if we weren't already including them, Dave. Anybody who is anti-black, even if they're Jewish, that's already been included. So when somebody says, let's stop and talk about it as if they haven't been included, that's really time wasting, is the issue I have when I hear those kind of things. That's really time wasting. We don't really have to go into an exegesis. Look it up. We don't have to really go into a long dissertation of Zionism when we just said, okay, I'm not concerned about their geopolitical ambitions. I'm concerned about their racial ones. And if they're white supremacists, I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your ethnicity. I don't care about your geographic location. If you're white supremacist, you go in this bucket over here. And don't think that telling me that you're Jewish is going to get you out that bucket. Don't think telling me you're Latino is going to get you out that bucket if I clearly see you practicing white supremacy. You want to get out that bucket? Stop practicing white supremacy. And no, one or two people not doing it is not going to get everybody off the hook for that.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. See, they know that Negroes love to sit around and debate about minutia and details and non sequiturs. They know folks love to do that because powerless people tend to sit around and start talking about semantics, and you can debate that for literally decades and never come to a conclusion. And what I'm saying is, okay, they're all already in that bucket. Who are these folk who try to come in our midst and waste our time and start arguing about, what about this group? Yeah, they're in the bucket already. Yeah, but we really need to talk about them. They're in the bucket already. Yeah, but we need to stop and really focus on that. Okay, it sounds like you're trying to get us distracted. We already told you several times they're in the bucket already. Why are you trying to divert us into a discussion about them as if they're not already that you're trying to convince us of something? They're already in the bucket. And unless you're trying to say that all those other people we have in there, I want y'all to understand, there's a whole bunch of black folk who are trying to rationalize letting all the other folks out. Do y'all get that? The people who focus, when we let them know that, by the way, anybody who's anti-black, including if they are Jewish, they're already in the bucket. The folks who sit up here and have us running around in circles about that, what they're trying to do is get us to give those other folks in the bucket a pass. Well, you know, the Latinos, they are actually black people. And the real issue is, because y'all realize I've gotten calls from people like that. How many of y'all remember the calls I got from the fellow who said that the Arabs, the white Arabs, they're not really white. It matters that they're Muslim. And the Latinos, well, they're not really white. They're like us, and we need to focus on the Jews. Y'all remember I've gotten phone calls like that. So these are fellas here who, whatever their motivations are, they're trying to get the rest of us to rationalize whatever fetish they have. So it's like, okay, you can down these folk over here. These other folks, they ain't really white, and you need to let them off the hook and tell us that we get a pass for dealing with them. And okay, I'll write off the Jews. I ain't really interested in getting no Jewish chicks, but the rest of them, you gotta let them off the hook so we can. Oh, so everybody else isn't. We're going to recognize Jewish white supremacy and give a pass to everything else. Why is it you don't want us to group them all together? Why is it you want us to decouple these others? What is it about these others that you're trying to get us to decouple it for? Because that's what you're arguing for. You're trying to get us to decouple it. Why? If we already marked all these folks as white supremacists, we've accurately marked them, why are you trying to argue us down about this one group that's already in the bucket? Do you not want them there? Yeah, they need to be there. Okay, well, they're already there. Yeah, but these other folk, do they need to be? They were just used and manipulated. Remember the guy who called me up and said that? How many of y'all remember the guy who called me up and said that these other folks were, quote, manipulated by the Zionists and the Jews? Remember that guy? Well, Jason, they're just being manipulated by them. He wanted me to give everybody else a pass and said, well, the Asians, remember, he said the Asians. He said the Asians wouldn't be doing what they're doing. It's the Jews who are making them do that. The Jews are making them do that. Remember the killing of Akai Gurley? That's the Jews. That's not the Asians. That's not them. Let me get caller from area code 317. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
How you doing tonight, Mr. Boyka? It's Derek from Indiana.
Okay, Derek from Indiana. What's on your mind?
Well, man, I'm digging the broadcast tonight, and I'm getting it because it's Malcolm X's. Remembering Malcolm X. But one of the things I want to say is I don't think that most of the people who bring up Zionism don't know the true definition of it. Stokely Carmichael, before U2 wiped his whole entire speech, explains it as it being a political way of thinking, a right-wing political way of thinking. And when people call up and talk about Zionism, they sound all off about it. But my other thought is, yeah, what would Malcolm X be doing today if he was alive? I mean, would he have reconciled his differences with Elijah Muhammad, and then he would be running FOI instead of Farrakhan? Or would he have gone into politics to try to make things better? Because one thing he was trying to do, I think, like towards the end of his demise, was he was trying to work with Congress to get rid of white supremacy. And he was at his ends with.
Certainly Malcolm was about results, and he was hard at work trying to put together an alternative infrastructure to the Nation of Islam, because while the Nation of Islam did have its merits, it also had its issues, and Malcolm was very much trying to address that. So he was trying to put together an alternative structure, and he was making headway of that. Now, will we ever know what would have happened if he had been allowed to keep running? No, we don't.
No.
Do we know if there would have been apostasy? No, we don't. It could happen. Would he stay solid like Farrakhan has for the most part? I think he would have. I think the Nation of Islam cats have pretty much been consistent in that regard. So I think that would have been the case. But I certainly think that, he would have been a major agitator. I think his whole thing was he would have been a major agitator. He wouldn't let him rest on their laurels. And that's the major reason he had to die. Malcolm X knew how to evolve. Malcolm knew how to evolve. He evolved from Malcolm Little to Malcolm X to El Haj Malik. He knew how to evolve. He changed with the times. He looked for alternative things. He wasn't just trying to hit the same door all the time. He wasn't just trying to do the same strategy. He was multi-pronged. He was innovative. And that is another reason. He was a strategist. And that's the reason he had to die. Understand something. At the end of their lives, both Malcolm and Martin were both majorly focused on politics. So by the end of their lives, both of them were actually majorly focused on that. And that was the direction they were really moving in. You know, in the book Orders to Kill by what's his name, Pepper, who was there with Dr. King. Like I said, there's some issues with Mr. Pepper, don't get me wrong. But he claimed that Dr. King and Dr. Spock, you know, were looking at putting together a presidential ticket. That would have been a major raising of the profile. I don't think they would have won the White House, but that would have certainly made a major raising of the profile at a pivotal time. Certainly for the Democrats, that would have taken a lot of votes away from the black vote, would have been seriously in danger for the Democrats if something like that had occurred. So if that is to be believed, and there's some indication that that could be believed, certainly when you take a look at Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, what they did, certainly it seems they were taking, well, I'm just saying, it seems like they were taking a page out of a certain playbook. What was it that made them think that could be successful? I think Dr. King may have given them Dr. King and the folk around him might have given them the idea that could be viable as a political tool. And so what I think that's the direction that Malcolm and Dr. King would be moving in, because remember, they had just gotten the Civil Rights Acts passed, but they were already acknowledging that obviously this was not enough. They would have been doubling down at this point to get policy, not to just get no civil rights. Now you're going to have to give specific economic policy. And that's what I think, I'm certain, that was the next step that Malcolm and Martin and everybody else, by that way, everybody else would have been going in that direction.
90 seconds.
It's time to secure specific economic tangibles for us.
Well, Martin did say we're coming to get the check.
That was the next thing. And by the way, and Malcolm was saying much the same thing. And next thing you know, bam, bam, you're both dead. Oh yeah, and that president and his brother too. By the way,
the Kennedy boys.
You're dead, and so is he. Oh look, President Lyndon Baines Johnson. Good luck getting anything by him. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. So I think that had Malcolm lived, he certainly would have been working more to maneuver within Capitol Hill. And by the way, that would be great for us, because who was our political representative? Malcolm would have been a major force for keeping the black political class honest. You couldn't have had as many political coons as you did with a Malcolm X and a Dr. King sitting there banging the drum on a policy specifically for black folk. You wouldn't have had that going on. These guys would have been gatekeepers. They'd be the boots on the ground. They would be respected. They would get bigger as time went on. These political puppets wouldn't have had as much room to breathe, and they wouldn't have been able to move the way they were moving had them brothers still been alive. The political puppets in places like New York, they wouldn't have been able to move the way they were moving had Malcolm been able to live through the 70s. If Malcolm had made it through the 70s, Detroit, the way things went down in New York, by the time you get to the 80s, they ain't moving the way they were moving. I'm not saying we wouldn't have had any political puppets. Of course you would have. But they wouldn't have been able to get down the way they had been. Caller Miracle 773, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, this is D calling from Chicago. Jason, how you feeling this evening?
Hi, D from Chicago. What's on your mind?
Yeah, man. First of all, if you don't mind, there's a poem that I had written years ago that's dealing with the situation with whether they're Jewish or whether they're this or that. People don't know. I called in a couple weeks ago, and I grew up in the area where Nazi headquarters was on 71st Street. And in that area, you had Polish people, you had Lithuanians, and all those different races that Hitler was genociding. But they got along in that area, but when we moved in that area in 74, it didn't make no difference what, they were just white. And they all attacked us. This is in 1974, Marquette Park. And this is, but the poem that I wrote, it literally says, to the Polish, Jewish, Irish, Lithuanians, and last but not least, Italians, always claiming how their forefathers had it so rough when each one of them MFs took from us my race, and all I can literally say is suck my people dry. So that's why I wonder why these MFs claim it was so hard for them when all I see is my people out on a limb scratching to survive. Hey, Jason, I love you, man. Hey, I've been rolling with you at least 10 years, somewhere in that area. And I'm just, every now and then I'll leave a comment. I called in a couple weeks ago. The little youngins ate me up, called me old school. I am 55. But nevertheless, I'm a rider, and I've been rolling with Malcolm since I was at least 11 years old, listening to tapes of this man. So, hey, man, the war is real. Like you said earlier, what the hell do you think a race war is?
Well, brother, that's the kind of thing we need to hear.
I ain't sleep with you, man. I'm 100% with you, man.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. That's the kind of thing we need. Let me get caller from area code 770. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Jason, what's going on? This is BC from Atlanta, man. How you doing?
All right, BC from Atlanta. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I got a question for you. I got one or two, maybe one. Okay, now, when you look at how we came over here, you know, we were brought over here for labor, entertainment, and sexual exploitation. That's on one side of Africa, dealing with Europeans and how colonialized. On the other side, we're dealing with Arabs who dealt with Africans for military conquest, and then they used us for labor and entertainment. But even in the entertainment, they really don't promote blacks, Africans, or push it. They let that go to the wayside. So the first question is, it seems like, you know, we sort of stuck in this, like, we brought over here for labor. And even in labor, you know, of course, they, you know, 90-something% of the jobs are by white people. But when you go to entertainment, even though we're paid at a high level, 10, 20, $30 million, the gambling is starting to make us just be high-paid entertainers. And
okay, you say we need the short version of it here, folks. But you say the gambling is? I'm not sure what you're referring to about the gambling.
What I'm saying is that even being paid at a high rate or a high dollar figure, it seems like we're still being pieces on the pawn on the board in which we're moved around as entertainment.
Well, yes, that's of course, because the real thing is what you're taking a look at is the proportion of it. We're getting paid, quote, a lot of money. Well, yeah, but are you comparing what you're getting paid to the ceiling, or are you comparing what you're getting paid to the floor? Because comparatively speaking, for example, somebody getting paid $10 million is closer to somebody making $100,000 than they are to somebody making $10 billion. So yeah, he's certainly making a lot more than the working class people who may constitute the majority of the population. But compared to the man who's cutting his check, he isn't actually, he's not getting anything near what they're getting. So he's got enough to make himself very, very comfortable, but he doesn't have enough to bail out the masses. And they're not spreading that. They dump a whole bunch of that money onto a few people, but only as a reward for enriching the folk above them. So the psychological schism that we have when you talk about athletes and entertainers, they're not getting paid because they're working a job. They're getting paid a cut of what they're generating. Then you take a look at it and realize they're actually getting paid a very small cut of what they're generating. So they're just getting chipped off a crumb off the loaf of what they're generating. If they don't generate it, they don't get anything at all. So it's not like it's just being given to them by fiat. They got to go earn it. So here's the deal. If you make us $100 billion, we'll give you 10 million. Well, that sounds like a good deal. Let me go enjoy that deal. Okay, and up you run and tear off your ACL and your MCL and so on and so forth. You make us $100 billion and we'll give you 10 million. You give us enough money to buy a whole nation and we'll give you enough money to buy a fancy car. And when you consider it in that when you consider that in that context, in that proportion, and and we're only going to give it to 100 of you. Yeah, there's 40 million of you, but we're only going to give it to 100 of you. In other words, it's statistically insignificant.
Correct. I agree with you 100%. Can I add something to that? How long do you think, just, looking at the layers of these three that I said on how we are seeing brung over here, labor, entertainment, sexual exploitation for the masses, really Caucasians in general, but how long do you see us grinding to get to a point where these three layers aren't the basis of 80% of us? Just what we do.
My answer to that question is until it's done.
Understood.
And I say that not just as a mathematical answer, but also as a social answer. Because here's the thing. If we ever tell anybody how long we expect it to take, just understand the game this society plays. Okay, you just told us how long to hold out. So if we say 20 years, they're like, okay, we just got to hold them off for 20 years. And then they're going to be like, oh, well, it didn't happen. So as far as I'm concerned, Jason, how long are we going to keep at it? Till we get it done.
Understood.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. How long y'all going to be bashing at our gates till we knock it down? How long are y'all going to keep going at us till you fall? How long y'all going to keep pulling on us till you give it up? We gonna keep at them. When you wake up every morning, we gonna be sitting right there. We'll be right there. Weekends, holidays, all throughout May, we gonna be right there. We're not going anywhere. You'll be. We're not going nowhere. There is no time limit on this clock. We'll be here until we fixed it. Brother Malcolm, your life was not wasted. You've served as an inspiration to me personally and to millions of others in America and around the world. And if I am lucky, if I am extremely lucky, I will die with 1,000th of the influence and the mark that you made on the world and on us. We are Malcolm X, and we are going to continue pursuing our goals on this planet, in this country, in this nation, in this age, by any means necessary. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program. Mr. Wilbur, Mr. Lavelle, Snaps, everybody here, Suleiman Abdul Leak, all the folks who have become new members here in the chat. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go and check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, all of it on DVD and streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank you all for tuning in to tonight's program. Thank you for watching live or recorded. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, Black is the future, and the future is by any means necessary.